Um, we got CSS this week. CSS is fun. It's fun and it's also rude. CSS is unkind, often, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to play around with. Like on top of all this, or just like a heads up on all of this, with CSS, we'll talk about the underlying things, and it is really helpful if you can kind of understand the underlying pieces that make CSS work. That will help a lot with CSS, but it's also just something that you get comfortable with practice. And depending on what kind of job you're going for, you may use a lot of CSS or you may only use a bit of CSS. Remember, this isn't a design class, so I can't tell you how to make pretty looking things, only how to make something look a particular way. Whether that's a good choice, can't tell you, but I can make it look a particular way. So often what this will look like as a front-end developer is that you get a mock-up and you need to make it look like that mock-up. That would be something that a front-end developer, particularly a UI developer, someone who's more front to the front would do. If you're going more full stack or you want to end up sort of more back-end, you may only use a bit of CSS or no CSS. Just kind of depends on like sort of how far to the front you are. How in the like UI are you? How involved are you in sort of setting up that UI? Like, okay, well, if they want to select what things to be visible, they open up a drop down and then they click this inside of here. If you're part of that, then you need to be able to get CSS to do what you want so that you can make sort of programming design decisions. Not this is red, but like, let's put it in a drop down, you know, that kind of a thing. When you're working on the front end, that is often a part of your job, or at least a section of your job, to think about how the user uses this and design, not like colors, pictures, but like architect kind of an experience for the user in interacting with the website. So that's kind of where CSS plays into development, and sort of the place it has in development, in web development. It's a lot of fun. I love doing like UI stuff. I have no eye for design, but I do love being like, it makes sense for this to be a button here, like UI design. I do like, so it's good fun to me. It's fun, you know, it's so frustrating to use a piece of software that's annoying to use, right? And it's so satisfying when it's so like pleasant to use. So I get excited about that kind of stuff. What are we doing? Let's share screen. Let's do this stuff. So also another piece of context too is this week we are talking CSS, and we're talking just like CSS from scratch. I would say a good bit of the time we're not doing CSS from scratch because we're using something like Bootstrap or Tailwind that kind of gets us a running start. Instead of sort of building it all the way from the ground up, we get kind of a running start to go with it. It's kind of like if you're sewing, you don't necessarily want to like weave the cloth, you know. You want to start with pre-made cloth and go from there or something. I don't know. Kind of like that. Starting from scratch with CSS is like really, or like making bread from scratch. No bread maker, right? CSS without any framework is kind of like making bread with no bread maker. People do it, and if you want really to make like something really controlled, you need to do it. But very often they'll use something to kind of get them started, you know, like a bread maker or something, you know. I don't know if that metaphor makes any sense, but so this week we're learning it from scratch and kind of getting the fundamentals from scratch. Next week we will learn Bootstrap, which is a framework that kind of gets you up and running. We're going to use Bootstrap throughout the rest of this course. Depending on where you work, they may or may not use something like Bootstrap. It's common. Bootstrap used to be the most commonly used one. In the past like year or two, Tailwind has surpassed Bootstrap. But Bootstrap's been along a long time and is very liked because it kind of just gets you up and running much faster. You can kind of go from there. Tailwind as well. If you learn one, you can transfer over to another. Not too bad. But so this week we are learning just the basics of CSS. I just want to make sure I remember the questions that popped up. Yeah, we'll talk about these. Okay. So the fundamentals of how CSS works, you know, if we have some HTML here, some ugly little HTML with just some gibberish writing in here. HTML is real ugly, right? This is horrendous and the picture is way too big, right? So we use CSS to give this the look that we want. Now, don't judge my design skills. I'm not a designer. You can judge me, it's fine. But we're going to talk about how we could start to style this in a way that we want to. Now, when you have CSS, you very frequently put it in a separate file, as in .css, and then you link it in with something like this, something along these lines, to sort of connect the file in. Just like we can connect JavaScript in with a script tag, we can connect CSS in with a link tag. There is a way to put CSS straight in here, style equals, and you can put CSS straight in here. Don't do it. There are times to do it when you're working with JavaScript. There's sometimes times to do it, but if you're just like writing HTML and CSS, don't do it. You'll look like you don't know what you're doing. Unless you're working with JavaScript, putting it in the style tag, it's like real messy. It's a messy thing to do. It's really hard to maintain. Gets all so we put our CSS over here. Occasionally you'll see the CSS put in here, and then CSS will go here. That's totally fine. You can totally put it in a style tag up here at the top, but don't put it in a style attribute on each individual one. It's really hard to maintain that and to keep things from getting crazy. Your CSS gets all mixed in with your HTML, and nobody likes that. Now, when we hit things like React, there's sometimes reasons to use the style tag, or when we start using JavaScript to manipulate the HTML and CSS, we can do that through the style attribute, style attribute, not style tag, through the style attribute. But when you're just writing CSS, we don't want to put it in the style attribute. We want to use selectors, select what we want it to apply to, and then write the CSS. So that is, any questions, by the way?
Can we get some examples for like the separate, like how to link in the CSS? Because I was just gonna do the styles thing that I'm so glad you just said not to do that, because that's what I've been doing. I love it. So I don't do that anymore, so I can do it right.
Yeah, so we don't want to do this, style equals, sorry, but you can, doing this is okay. This is not bad. Up here in the head is not bad because it's separate from the HTML. We just don't want to mix into the HTML in here. But how do you hook it in? This will do it. You can just literally copy this line, change it to the path through your CSS file, and you're good.
And you link that in just by putting the link there, and then you have the folder, and it just knows because it's the .cs or the week 8.css. That's how they know.
You said, hey, it's a style sheet. Here's where it is. Please pull it in for me.
Okay.
Yeah, great question. Great question. Erin.
Yeah, so I guess maybe I'm just trying to clarify. From the videos that I watched, it said that if you put the style, like you just described, or if you were to put it on it, it's considered the same. And for our homework, we're supposed to use external, and you really shouldn't be putting it in your HTML file because it's going to be harder for you to go or it's going to take longer for you to go in and update everything, because you're going to have to update every element versus going into your CSS tab where you can do that. Am I correct, or am I missing something?
Yes. So these two are different. This is inline styling is what this is called, and this is an inline style sheet. This is an external style sheet. This is an inline style sheet. Using a style sheet, great. Inline or external, it's not too big of a deal. Generally speaking, professionally, we pretty much always put it in an external style sheet, because who wants it clogging up your HTML, right? But writing it in here, you can write it exactly the same here as you could write it here. So like syntactically, it's exactly the same. But doing it in here is not good for the reason just like you said, because if I wanted to style all my list items with red text, I would have to do style color red. Sorry, my brain is switching to React. I never do a style tag except in React. My brain is wigging out for a second here, but we can do style color red. We have to put this on every single one. And then later, if we changed it to green, we'd have to go change it on every single one. Also, this would get horrendously long because you tend to have a lot of styling on stuff. So we really do not want to be doing this. Occasionally, we write JavaScript that in the background does this, and that's okay. But we don't want to be putting it on here like this, except in like very specific situations. Like sometimes you're like working on a WordPress thing and you don't have access to doing that. And the only way you can get the CSS on is like this. You know, it happens sometimes, right? That we need to do this because of the weird little scenario we're in. We don't have access to a CSS style sheet. But this one is the no, don't do it. And this one is fine. And this one is what happens professionally and what you really should be doing. Great question. Rosie.
Okay, so just to clarify, so that part that you're deleting from line 16 and 17, could you put that on line 8 in between those two style words and then?
You could not.
Okay.
So this is a really good question. What is different about this is that there is no selector. That's what makes it crappy. There's no selector here. It is just put exactly on the thing that it's going to apply to. That makes it very hard to maintain. Whereas over here, if we want to do that same thing, it would look like this. So the difference is this has no selector. It's just right on the li. This one has what we call a selector. Something to say what it applies to. That way it can apply to all of these LIs in just one spot.
Okay.
So you could keep them up there in the head.
This is perfectly fine. It's not usually what we do professionally, but there's nothing like horrendous about it. Just that your styles tend to get really long, so it tends to be like annoying to have it up there and just easier to have it in another file. But you write it the same either way. So I could put it here or I could put it here, and it's written the same way either way. Now, what did I do?
Can we look at your CSS file as for like example of like what that would look like as far as?
Do you mean this one right here?
Yeah. Like just because you have your little, I feel like obviously that's where you keep the CSS and then you link the things in, but I'm just like, what does the format look like?
Yeah. I can pull up one from like another project real quick to kind of show you what one might look like somewhat professionally. Yeah. Let me grab one. I've got one somewhere. Let me just,
because I feel like mine would just look like my high school notebooks.
You know what I mean? Let me see. This might, wait, let's see. This might, I can't even remember what is in this, but let's see if it looks like what I think. Yeah, here's one. Here's a style sheet from a project that I was working on. Oh my gosh, come back here. Sorry, I closed things and now Zoom is freaking out.
So you like commented out the different
there we go,
like the various categories that.
Yes, that's a really common thing to do is put a comment and you just put like these extra little stars just because it kind of looks nice. I don't know. You don't need these extra stars. What?
Just because it's cute?
Just because it's cute, yeah. Because it's kind of visually easy to see. But yeah, so you often sort of delineate out the different areas, and then you just have a bunch of selectors and their sort of blocks doing different styling. Now, these are all really small because I'm using Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is doing the bulk of the styling, and this is just kind of adding some styling on top. That's why they're so small in terms of each one only has like one property that it's setting. It's very common to have much more properties that you are setting. I have lost everything, right? Like move things over here, and now my computer doesn't know where anything is anymore. I'm trying to remember. I have another one in here, but yeah, this is what it tends to look like.
It's like the dot something and then like the color and okay.
Yeah, this is very, very frequently what it tends to look like. You can see all the selectors here are class selectors, which is very common. I have another example somewhere,
Great
but it's a
job.
good one. Erin.
So I know this was a question, I think that, I can't remember who asked, but someone else put it, and then I asked something else afterwards. And I noticed that each one of the ones that you have here is all a class ID because it has the dot. So I believe they asked what's the difference between the class ID, and then curious, because I don't believe any of the videos talked about the element unless I missed it. So what are those? Why do you use them? And when are you supposed to use those?
Love it. Great question. Let's dig into selectors. Perfect segue. Let's dig into selectors. So selectors are a way to say what you want this to apply to. Imagine, my brain thinks of it like this. Imagine like a boss calls like an all hands meeting or whatever. And then the boss is like, hey, you cannot use green paper. And they're like, for what? Who can't use green paper? In what context can you not use green paper? And he might say who that applies to. Anyone who works in the accounting department can't use green paper. I don't know. This is what bosses say. I have no idea. So this is sort of saying who it applies to. Anyone with the class special text. Your text is now green, you know. Or the boss might say, hey, anyone who works in the warehouse has to wear steel-toed boots. So these are kind of rules for all of the HTML elements. And this is the selector that says who it applies to. Very frequently, we're going to use class selectors. By far, that is the most common type of selector, and the selector you should be going for first. We're going to combine them sometimes, and I'll show you some examples of this. We're going to group things sometimes too. But another two, this is not an exhaustive list of all the kinds of selectors out there, just greatest hits. Another is an element selector. This is more sort of generic. It's like all women get to leave early. That should be a thing. So I buy it. This is all buttons. It's very generic. It's just any button anywhere gets curved corners. Border radius curves a corner. Gets curved corners on it. So this is going to apply to every button anywhere, which you got to be kind of careful because as you start to get a big app, you might have a lot of buttons in a lot of places, right? And they might be doing very different things. This button is the sign-in button. This button lets you select between two options, you know. This button is a big like join now button, you know. All of those are going to get that styling to them. So we use this one more sparingly because it's kind of too broad very often. We'll often just use it to sort of set up a baseline, but then we want to use class selectors from there because class selectors end up being sort of exactly as specific as we want them to often. So that's kind of the secret to getting CSS to not be so annoying. CSS can be beautiful if you work it right and like freaking rude if you don't, you know. It's like you gotta soothe, it's a cat. You know, cats are great, but if you do, they don't want to listen. You gotta really persuade them. So we want to be exactly as specific as we should be, because we have to remember computers are dumb, right? So if you're a boss of a bunch of dumb people, you got to be very specific about how these rules apply, right? That's us with computers. ID selectors are very specific. Like a social security number or your name. It applies to just one thing. IDs you cannot have multiple of that same ID. There's going to be one of that ID, and this styling is going to apply just to that one thing. So we use this very rarely because it's too specific. Imagine if your boss was like, John Green, you have to wear steel-toed boots. That can be kind of too specific. It might be better to say, the person who is working this machine has to wear steel-toed boots. That might be sort of the right amount of specific in my brain. So a class selector is the right amount of specific often, an ID selector is often too specific, and an element selector is often too broad. But we will often pair class and element selectors. We do that a lot. And like in a descendant selector, which we're going to talk about, I'm going to show a bunch of examples of it too, to get kind of just the right amount of specific that we want. to set up our CSS nicely to work nicely with each other. We also do grouping selectors, often for setting up kind of a baseline. You can see in this, I'm saying that all the headings should have the same font and blue text. That's a pretty normal thing to want, right? To have all the headings sort of have the same look. This could be a nice sort of baseline styling to set up, and then I can start to make things more specific from there. But even still, I might go with a class selector instead of doing this, depending on how I'm setting things up. So in order to really understand selectors, though, we have to understand how they interact with each other. What happens when your boss says everyone who works in the warehouse has to wear steel-toed shoes, everyone who works in the heat has to wear sandals? But what if you work in both the warehouse and the heat? What if you work in a really hot warehouse? I don't know. So which one wins? Which one should beat out the other one? Which rule should beat out the other one? It's like trumping in card games, right? Like so trump card trumps the other card, and higher numbers trump lower numbers, whatever. It's like that. We need a system for what wins what. Like the game of war, like the higher numbers. Anyways, so this is a simplified version of what wins what. There's, again, CSS, you can spend freaking years digging into that thing. You don't got it though. You can learn it over time, and some of it you never have to learn. You just need to be able to like get some comfort with it, get some understanding of how to get it to do what we want. Inline styling beats most everything, so don't do it. That's why it's in red. It beats most everything, which ends up being sucky. If you notice, class selector is kind of near the middle, which ends up being pretty great. We tend to use these. These end up being sort of the right amount of specific. So we can also use the important flag. This is when on something, let's throw it on here. You throw in important, which says, I'm a VIP. I'm the VIP. I win. I must have the best room. This says, I don't care what other selectors are on there. I don't care how specific they are. I should always win. Now, generally speaking, don't do it. Important is if you find yourself using important more than very rarely. Oh, look, I am using it right here, and I'll tell you why, actually. If you find yourself using important more than very rarely, then you probably are not understanding CSS. In fact, if you were using important when you were the only one writing the CSS, you probably shouldn't be doing that. If I am writing my own CSS and it's just my CSS, that's all the CSS that's applying to something, I would probably never use important. But occasionally you are interacting, like say with a library, and that is exactly why I'm using important right here. I am using a library, I'm using Bootstrap in this particular project. And Bootstrap is giving things a background, and I don't want it to. So in order to sort of get Bootstrap to cut it out, I have to put important on here to make sure that it never has a background if I give it the no background class. I want this one to trump everything. That's what this class is designed to do, is to trump everything, even though I'm using a library that wants to put a background on things. So that is kind of the use case for important. It's when you got sort of different CSS and you didn't write the library CSS and it's too specific and you need that class because of the other bits, but you got to kind of overwrite one piece of it. I put this class on things where I'm using a class that I like everything about it, that class, except the background bit of it. You can put the no background on there and sort of trump that it should have a background. Now, if that's a little bit confusing, don't worry about it too much. But basically, very occasionally for situations where we need something to trump everything, usually because we're using someone else's CSS as well. We don't have control over how specific their selectors are. So that's important in inline. We talked about ID selectors. We're gonna look at ID and class in just a second here. Element selectors. We also need to talk inherited. Let's really quick here. Let's come into some stuff in here. Let's come in here. I'm gonna get rid of this one. We're gonna work in the external style sheet. I'm gonna get rid of this as well because it is blasphemy. There we go. Okay, so we got some CSS here. So what are we? Let's have both of these open for a second here and play around just a little bit here. This one. Okay, so I might want to style this area. I want this to become like a nav bar type situation. And I want these to be some nice links in my nav bar, looking all pretty and beautiful instead of this garbage. So I need to set up some styling on here now. Oh, it looks like I have some old classes and IDs already on here. I'll take them off for a second. But so what I could do, like for example, this chairs are us, I could put an ID on it. In fact, that's what I did before, so that's why I got the idea. I can put an ID on it. I temporarily did before. I can put an ID on it and be like page heading or whatever. And then I could come in here and style this page heading. We do a hashtag to say it's an ID. Hashtag means ID, dot means class, because it does. So the hashtag page heading, and then we could do some styling on here. We could say what font family we wanted to use. And you can see it changes the font family. We could set the size of it. Font size, pretty trim. Oh, I forgot my semicolon. Geez. We could style this how we want to, but this is not reusable ever. We can never reuse this. If I had another area that I wanted to have the same look, or if for some reason I wanted two things up here or something like that, I cannot reuse it because IDs have to be unique. IDs need to have no spaces and they need to be unique. So we don't tend to do this. This doesn't tend to be a good way to do things. Also because we need a way to style this as well. What are we gonna do? Put an ID on this as well and be like ID equals nav bar length, and then put an IDs on each of these or something. Like what are we, it's gonna get so messy. So instead, we don't use IDs and we instead use classes. Now, the way we tend to do this, rather than putting a class on every single one of these pieces, I would put a class on just this outer nav element. A nav is just a div with a little bit of meaning behind it. Basically, it's just a div. But we can put a class on this, and we can do nav class nav bar. And now in here, not there. Now in here, instead of doing page heading to get this, I could do dot nav bar, and then I could use what's called a descendant selector. I could say, hey, if you find something with the class of nav bar on it, look inside there. And if there are any, what is it, an H1? If there are any H1s in there, give it this styling. So now we are saying if anything has the class of nav bar, any H1s inside of there should have this styling. So if we end up for some reason putting two H1s in there, both of them will get that styling, which is awesome because it's probably what we want if we ended up putting two in there. I don't know why we would, but if we did, probably want them styled the same. Or if somewhere else we have a nav bar, if we have like a side nav bar situation, we probably want it styled the same. So now anytime we want, we can put the class nav bar on here and any H1s inside will be styled that same way. Yeah, go away. I really want to save you. All right. So we can also start styling some of these other pieces. Well, let's style the whole thing really quick here. Let's go. Let's style the actual nav bar bit. So let's say background. So I feel like I had a. Let me grab a color here. Don't I have a color somewhere? No, not really. I thought I had one somewhere. We'll do light gray. Light gray. So we put a light gray background on this nav bar. We could say padding 10 pixels and start to turn it into like a nav bar, right? We could say, hey, for the UL inside of this nav bar, is it li that you put it on? No, I can't remember. We can do list style type, and we can do none to get rid of the dots. We can start to style this like what we want to using that one class. That way, if we ever for some reason want a second nav bar, we put that anywhere else, and that one has a different set of ULs with different stuff inside of it, it will get styled the same. We can just apply that same class in one spot and put it down here. And it's going to get that same look to it, which ends up being super convenient and a really good way to set these things up. Because we can just drop styles on things and immediately get the look we want in those things. Now, where's my slides again? Come back here. So that was a little bit about descendant selectors. Here's a descendant selector. Now, what is going to win though? What if I have like an H1 selector right here that says, hey, all H1s should have a font size of 10 rem, you know? Let's see, this one's very huge. And what if I have another class that's like a small text? And this one says to have a font size of 0.5 rem, really small. And I put that class on here. Class equals small text. Now you can actually see which one wins, but which one wins when we have this that is applying to this H1 right here, this that is applying to this H1 right here, and this that is applying to this H1 right here? What wins the most specific? Which sometimes can be kind of intuitive. This one kind of just feels more specific because it's like, all right, if you've got something with the class of navbar and you look inside of that and you find an H1, apply it to that. That's kind of specific. Whereas this is just like all H1s, anything with this class. So this one is going to be more specific. But if I get rid of this and it's just this H1 selector versus this class selector, which one will win? Does anyone know? Will the text be really small or really huge?
Really huge.
Erin, did you say class? Yes. The class one will win. If I take this off, it goes very small because class selectors are considered more specific in our little hierarchy here. They're considered more specific than element selectors. Element selectors are lower, so a class selector wins. Now, what if instead of this being a class, or so instead of this being an element selector, it's a class selector, and this has both of those classes? Should be a very strange thing to do, but just for demonstration purposes, if we put the same two classes on this H1, and one says that the text should be huge and one says that the text should be small, which one's going to win? The later one wins, just because that's how they decided to break the tie. So if we look right here, we can see it's very small, but if we put small before huge, then it's going to be super huge. So where this tends to come into play is that if you are using a library, you want to import the library CSS first, and then your CSS. We'll talk about that when we hit Bootstrap, so that your CSS is later so that it will win against the library. Now, in this circumstance, I had to put important, and mine wouldn't win against the library because the library was using important, so I had no choice. It was an arms race. It was the only way I could get mine to win. But generally speaking, that's going to help you so that yours will win over library classes, which is often what you want, right? You'll use the library classes, and then if you need to tweak it, you can write your own classes and they will overwrite. That's going to make more sense next week when we start using Bootstrap, but just a little thing to flag in your brain. So those are kind of the general rules of what wins against what. You don't need to memorize these. Typically what I do is I realize that one is winning and I don't want it to, and then I make the one that's losing more specific until it's winning. That's all you really have to do. One thing you might notice is that if I put this back, this one wins because it's like a bit more specific, which is one of the reasons why we love to sort of use this way, why this way of styling with like one class and like descendant selectors is really common, because it often creates this good level of specificity. Any questions? Okay. So let's keep going with this. We've got a very huge we can get rid of these stylings. We don't really like them. We'll take them out. I'm also going to take out this right here. One of the great things about classes, though, is that you can put multiple of a class on the same thing, which we're actually going to do a lot of when we have being super, super useful. but we'll talk about that more next week. Right, this week we're sort of focusing on if you're not using a library, how would you start doing this from scratch? Now, we've got a problem. See this little like gap right here? There's like this gap where it's like not up against the side, which is kind of annoying. Now, that kind of thing is going to happen to you all the time, where you're like, why is my CSS doing that? And this is where the Elements tab comes in. This is essential to doing CSS. If I'm having a CSS issue, the very first thing I do is come into this where I can start looking and figuring out why is it doing that. If you want to figure out where did that space come from, like if you're like, where did this space come from? This space between the edge here and there. No space comes out of nowhere. It's always coming from somewhere. If there was no margin or padding on anything, everything would be all up against each other. If there's a space, it's from somewhere. It's from some kind of margin padding situation. We can right click on the area that we want to know what is that and do inspect. And it's telling me that that is the UL. And now you can see when I mouse over the UL that that area is green, which tells me that that came from, green is padding, this little thing, that is padding on this UL. And in fact, it's kind of hard to tell here, but we'll talk about this, but this is giving it some padding. So when I look at this, I can see that there's 40, that says 40 right there, 40 pixels of padding on the UL, and that is what is giving me my space right there. So if I want to get rid of it, I can go to my UL and say, don't do that. And I could say like, hey, if you're a UL that's inside of something with a class of navbar, we don't want that padding garbage. And we can say padding 0. And now that space went away, and you can see that the UL no longer has padding there. Where did that padding come from? Who put that padding there? The answer is the browser. The browser has some default styling that it applies to things. You can see it in here. It's called user agent style sheet. If you see user agent style sheet, that is the browser. The browser does that. So I didn't like it, so I ripped it off. And browser styling is always very non-specific. It's really easy to overwrite. Any CSS that you write will win and overwrite it. Now, this one doesn't specifically say padding. It says padding inline start, which is crazy, and you don't have to worry about that. But basically, this got overwritten by me doing padding there, and now it no longer has padding. But what we care about is...
Sorry.
Go, yeah.
You did that by like right click and then press inspect.
Yep. If I want to know what that space is, right click and press inspect. If I want to know what this space is, right click, do inspect. Whatever it selects over here, that's what I was over. So let's see if I can get inspect. Oh yeah, it's like not wanting to like show me it. Let's do it right here. Let's see if we can do it. So we right click on this space and do inspect. It's telling us that that is the HTML, which that's weird. Why is that the HTML? Meaning, and you can see this, if I mouse over the body, I then see that the body actually was not overlapping with that space. And I've got this orange all the way around on the body, which tells me that I've got some margin. Now, CSS loves to be like weird and confusing. And you can see right here, it doesn't say I have margin. Oh, that's my, here we go. I do on the, there we go. Here it says I have margin. So I've got some margin on my body. Browsers love to put margin on the body, and that's annoying. And so you can strip it off. Now, it actually tends to be that there's a lot of annoying little things that browsers put on. And you never see, now we got rid of it when we took off the margin on the body. We overwrote that. Browsers tend to do this a lot. So often if we are building something from CSS from scratch, we want something called a CSS reset, which is just a little chunk of code. Here's a really famous old one. This one's a good modern one. This is the one I've been using for like 20 years. It's 15 years. I don't know. When did I start CSS? I've been using this one a freaking long time. It's very old. It has a place in my heart. The Meyer reset. It's really famous. But here's a good more modern one. Basically what it does is it's a bunch of CSS to just like strip off annoying things. So switch off. Oh yeah, here we go. Oh, it takes the margin off of everything. This little star says everything. Like, let's just rip that off. Get that out of there. But very commonly, a CSS reset will strip off all the annoying margin and padding. And if you notice that like we're doing a bunch of stripping off of annoying margin and padding, this basically just says, look, I gotcha. Let me take that out for you. So often you would grab something like this and just paste it in at the top of your CSS to kind of give you a better baseline to work from. It's called a CSS reset. You don't have to, but it can just be kind of convenient so that you're not constantly stripping things off that you don't want there. But we're not gonna do one for now. Just wanted to highlight that for you. So it's starting to look slightly more like a nav bar here. Oh, one other thing I want to highlight is that, look at this right here. See how this is crossed out? That is what happens when something more specific wins over something less specific. It'll be crossed out over here. So if something you want to win is crossed out over here, you need to make that thing more specific because it is losing right now. You know, if I do a class of lots of margin, and I do margin 500, 400 pixels, and I put this on my body, class equals lots of margin. Now, let's see. Oh, it can't even handle it. It's like so mad that I put that much margin. Anyways, the point is, you can see now that margin 0 got overwritten. And this one has 1, which it's freaking it out because 400 pixels of margin on the body doesn't know what to do. But you can see now both of these are crossed out because this one was more specific and 1. You really want to use this as much as possible. This is the secret to knowing what the freak is happening in your code. You want to look in here. Often what I do when I can't figure out, like, why is it doing that? That's weird. I'll come in here and start checking and unchecking things and see what happens when I check and uncheck them. Unchecking them takes them off. It makes them no longer apply. So I might come around in here and start checking and unchecking things and see what is doing the thing that's annoying me until I get it to do what I want it to do. Now it's doing very strange things because it's very mad at my margin, which fair enough. We will take this off. But that is often the secret to getting CSS to do what you want, and how you debug CSS is you come in here, you start checking and unchecking things to see what it does. And you inspect things and kind of and mouse over them right here and see, okay, that one's got some padding on it. Okay, that one has no margin or padding. All right, what's in here? Okay, that one has some margin. What was that? Yeah, it has some margin on the top and bottom. And you start to get a sense of what is doing what and creating the spaces that you're seeing. Erin.
Sorry, I was struggling to get back over to unmute. How do you put an underline? So like if you wanted to underline something.
Yes.
I know I put something that says like text underline, but I don't understand which one you're supposed to use.
Text decoration underline. Underline. Yeah. Good question. That's also, you take off an underline if you don't want underlines on your links, which we probably actually don't want. So this actually does apply to what we're doing right here. If I want to say, hey, if you're in a nav bar and you're a link, I actually don't want you to have an underline. You can do text decoration. How do I know that these things do the things? Because I've been doing CSS for 15 years. And because I Googled it at one point. I just Google that stuff. How do you get the underline off links? You Google that, you're going to find text decoration then. So now our links don't have underlines, which is probably a better fit for our little thing here. We probably also want to make the color of those like black or something. Maybe like a dark green or something. I don't know. Some sort of look that matches the look that you want to give them to be how you want to be. Oh, question. Is there a list of browser CSS defaults? You could Google it and probably find it. I don't know. I don't know of a list off the top of my head, but I'm sure there is one out there. Typically, what you just do is you find a reset and you just strip them out. Every browser can have different defaults, so often your goal is not to know what the browser is putting on, but to take it off and then work from a clean slate. Because every browser could do different defaults. You don't want to be playing that game. Good question. So let's come back around here. What are we up to? Let's, rather than just oops, come back up here. Rather than just giving the nav bar a font family, let's give the whole page a font family, and we very often put that on the body. And then if we wanted, this could have a different font family. Let's do a different one. What's another one that could look, what does trebuchet look like? Yeah, there we go. So, well, let's do one that's a little more obvious. Come on, let's do, if you're wondering what this is, these are called font stacks. Not something you need to like memorize, but it can be kind of interesting to know. Oh, this one will be obvious. They're basically plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D for fonts, because you don't know what fonts the user has on their computer. So it'd be like Impact would be awesome. If they don't have that, then Hattenschwaller would be awesome. And it just gives, that is an amazing name. Hattenschwaller. It's definitely how it's pronounced. I don't know. And then if not that, then just do Arial, narrow, bold. And if not that, then just any sans serif font. Sans serif is just a type of font. So you'll see those around a lot. Font stacks. VS Code has some autocompletive ones. You can also Google font stacks and see ones that people say like, oh, this is a good plan B if that one's not there. It's like substitutes in recipes. So we can do this. And now our one right here has a different font. And if we look at this, we can see something else. If you look right here, the body says font family Arial Helvetica sans serif. And then our nav H1 says font family Impact, and this one is winning. Now this is a more specific selector, but it would actually win anyways. So look at this really quick. Let's bring back our small text selector right here. And let's do a large text selector as well. And let's look at this really quick. So so if we come in here, look at this like paragraph of text right here. If we put a class on here, let's do this, class small text. So that's going to make all that text in that paragraph very tiny. You would never do that. I'm just doing that for demonstration. Very, very tiny. And now let's do this. Span, font size, and wrap. We'll do this. Wow, we get one huge thing in the middle of our small stuff. So if you look in here, there's a little span in here. And I said that all spans should have huge text. Now, a span is an element selector, whereas small text is a class selector. And shouldn't class selectors win over element selectors? Yes, if they are applied to the same thing. But look at this. The small text class is applied to the paragraph, which is the parent of the span. The element selector is applied to the span itself. And things that are applied directly to that exact element win out over things that are applied to the parent of it. Now, certain CSS things will be sort of what we call inherited, meaning if the parent is it, then the children will get it as well. Usually text-based things will get that. But anything on the element itself will win. So you can see that right here. Inherited loses out over anything else. Because yes, it's applied to the parent. It's kind of like I feel like this is a thing. Like you are a fan of your family's favorite football team, as long as you don't like go to the other college or whatever, go to the rival college or something. So by default, you will inherit your parents' football fandom. But if you go and get your own, then that will overwrite anything you might inherit from your parents. That's a thing, right? I feel like that's a thing. So that is how it works. Because the span got its own, even if it's just a slight thing, maybe you just walked past that university once and now you're a fan of it, it's gonna win over anything your parents tell you to do, because you're an adult, you get to do what you want. So that is how it works with selectors and all that stuff. And that's why this one is crossed out, because it is only inherited from paragraph.smalltext, so it loses to any other selector. Oh, we got some questions. Cassidy, what you got?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could talk more about the parent-child. Like, I guess I'm not understanding what part are the parents and what parts are the children.
Oh, yes, that's a really good question. So this actually is going to be really relevant. Sorry, this is just like words that we use in HTML, and I did not explain them, so thanks for bringing it up. In HTML, something that is inside of something else is considered its child. So
Okay.
this span is between the opening and closing p tags, so it is a child of the paragraph. You can see the paragraph is this whole thing.
Okay.
The span is a smaller section of it, so it is considered a child of it.
Is that different
In
than
HTML.
nested?
It means nested. It's nested inside of it. You can say it two ways. You could say the span is nested in the paragraph. You could also say the span is a child of the paragraph.
The children are in the nest. Got you.
The children are in the nest, exactly. That's perfect. Yes, so it's kind of like the children are literally like part of the parent. They're in the little pocket. This span, or like kangaroos. Do koalas do that too, right? I think. These are in the little
Marsupials.
pocket of the paragraph, so they are the children of it. We're going to use this sort of paradigm of like parents and children throughout the next few weeks. So trying to get your brain to think in this way is going to be really helpful. So thank you, Cassie, for bringing that up. Adam.
Yeah, so class is, you can put it in any tag, and it's class equals quotes, and then whatever text you put inside the quotes, that's the name of the class.
Yep, you just get to pick it. Whatever you want. You could be like, this class equals Sir Humperdinck. Whatever, you know. Prince Humperdinck, is that his name? I can't remember. And
Can
as
you put-
long as you can put any class you want. Nothing will happen when you put a class on things until you have something that styles it. Bird. Oh, what was I thinking? Color pink or whatever. Nothing will happen. What did I put that on? Oh, this whole div right here. Yeah, nothing will happen until you apply some styling to it. And as long as you use the same name in the CSS as in the HTML, it will apply that class. It's an entirely made up thing that you came up with. You just have to match it between the two. Kind of like variable names, right? You get to pick it. Except we don't usually do camel case. We usually do, what's this called? Like snake case or something, I think it's called. I don't know. Where we put dashes. It's not a rule. It's just a thing that we tend to do. You can't put spaces in it. Don't do this. But you can do this.
And so that's the syntax for a class. And let's say you wanted to put an ID on line 18. What's the syntax for an ID on line 18?
On line 18, yeah, you do ID equals, and same thing. You could make this have the ID of Prince Humperdinck. Yeah, this have the idea of Princess Buttercup. And now if you want to style it based on that ID, you would do a hashtag Princess Buttercup.
So classes is
yeah.
a dot syntax, and IDs is a hashtag syntax.
Oh.
Yes. And again, you pick the words. They just need to match between the two. Something can have both an ID and a class. No reason why it can't, and sometimes it needs to. I do not recommend ever using IDs for styling. We're going to use IDs for other things, but I do not recommend ever using them for styling.
Why?
Why is that?
They're too specific and they're not reusable. And you can only put one ID on each thing. And often when we are styling stuff, we end up putting a lot of different classes on the same thing, separated with a space. So I can put 4 classes on the same div, separated with a space, and we often do that. I cannot do that with IDs. So I can't reuse them and I can't layer them. And that ends up being really annoying with CSS. And they end up being too specific and make a little mess.
So if you wanted to label every every H2 heading orange, and when you hover over it, it turns green, you would prefer a class over an ID?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, 1000%. Because if you'd have to put a separate ID. If you did it with IDs, you would have to be like headings top, and then you'd have to find your another one and be like ID equals heading bar. You'd have to come up with a different name for each one because you cannot reuse it. And then in your CSS, you'd have to say like, oh, by the way, this should apply to heading top and is a grouping selector, heading in bar, and it's just going to be like a big old mess. Why are we doing that? Instead, you can make it a class selector, and you can say, and if you already had an ID on this for some different styling, you couldn't put another one. There wouldn't be an option to put another one. But if we do a class and we do like color changing hover, we can put this on anything we want, and we can put it anywhere we want. We can put it on both of these H1s and on this LI and on this div. And now we can just style, let's do a color changing hover, and it can be what color is blue, and then when they hover over it, which looks a bit like this, color changing hover. If you hover over something with that, so let's see, hover color red, I can apply this. I should be putting my semicolons. Not a bad habit. Now I can apply this anywhere that I want to. And you can see this one does it as well. And if I end up wanting multiple classes on the same thing, like I also want a different class on this div as well, I can put multiple classes on this div. It can have color changing hover, and it can have large text. Is that what I called it? Large text. And I can get both of those on the same one, and they work together with each other. That ends up being awesome. That is why we don't use IDs, because IDs are freaking annoying and just don't do what we want them to. Whereas classes end up meshing together really nicely and allowing us to reuse and combine and do all the things that we might want to do.
Why did the one hover say blue and then the other one said, I mean, like, and it makes sense, right? Because it's blue and then now it's red, but wasn't it blue by default? Because if you go back to your CSS page, it's right, like there and then
so
right there.
This right here is the name of my class. I could pick anything. I could pick banana as long as I use the same name over here.
Color
This
changing
right
banana.
here, this right here is special. That colon hover right there says only apply this styling to things with that class that are currently being hovered. So I could say only put this on spans when they're being hovered, and then that span would not be huge until, where is it? Until I hover it, and then it goes huge. So the span is tiny until I hover it now. You can do anything you want. You can put this colon hover on anything you want, and it just says, hey, whatever CSS in here, only apply it when it's being hovered.
Gotcha.
Have fun. So I made a class called color changing hover just to describe what the class does, that it changes color on hover, so that you want to pick names of your classes that make it easy to tell. That way, when I look at this, I can see just by looking at the HTML that this div is probably going to change color on hover and have large text, right? You want to pick names for your classes that make your code readable. So I picked the name color changing hover instead of the name banana, which would have worked just fine. We could call this banana instead.
Color changing
and that would work. Color changing banana. We could do we could do banana, but it probably makes sense to call it color changing hover because that describes nicely what I am doing.
Gotcha.
Banana changing color.
So when you're picking these colors, you don't have to know like I don't remember what the technical name is.
Hex codes.
You don't need to know that. You just pick a color: orange, pink, blue, green. You don't have to know like the pound FF 9836 or whatever. So
rarely do you actually. These are called color names. They're just kind of sort of default ones that you could use. It's always going to be this exact color of red, but it can be kind of convenient when you're just messing about. But most often when you're actually making an app, you need the exact shade of red that you need. So you can either do it with RGB or with a hex code. I would say it's pretty rare in a professional app to use these because they're horrendously ugly colors. Much more common to, they usually have an exact shade of red, that's their company's red or whatever. So you want to use that one, either with an RGB or with the hex code. It's very easy to figure out what the RGB or the hex code of something is. You can Google and find all kinds of ways to get it. I have a little extension that lets me like mouse over and like pick a color. So you can see right here, I can get this color and then just copy and paste this hex right here. And then, in fact, that's a very nice color. Let's make it the background color of our nav bar, shall we? Well, instead of doing hashtag light gray, I can use that color, and now you can see that's the background color of my nav bar. That's just
Is
a cool
RGB
extension.
or the hex code one better than the other?
No, just two different ways to, you can see in hex code it's FFFFF, in RGB it's 255, 255, 255. Just two different ways to communicate the same thing. How do I get you to go away? Go away. You done? Go away. How do I get out of you? Go down here. What have I done? Now I can't get out of my extension. Why would it go away?
Uh-huh.
Oh wait, there it was. Is that it? I think it's mad that I have this thing open. Is that it? There we go. Sorry, sorry, y'all. See, I feel like I am a designer. Look at how pretty this is. This is gorgeous.
That's really cool.
Thanks. I just think the green and the blue, they go so well together. It's amazing. It's avant-garde. Kate, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask quick, on your CSS style sheet, the nav bar A, so the A link, or what is that?
Yes. In HTML, just because in HTML, when we make a link, the tag is called A.
Oh, A href.
Who knows why? It just is.
Anchor.
Link is already taken for the one that links the style sheet, so I don't know. They just called links A's, and that's what they're called. That's what the tag name is called in HTML. So that A right there is an element selector, selecting all A's inside of something with the class of navbar. Great question. Adam, did you have another question, or is your hand just still up?
So if you change that A to a P, that's all the paragraphs, or if you change that to BR, that's all the breaks or whatever, right?
Exactly. This would be all paragraphs inside something with the class navbar. All links inside something with the class nav. This is all LIs inside something with the class navbar that are nested or are children of the class, something with the class navbar. Rosie.
Okay, this might be a strange question, but so do you do like web design like in some of your jobs? Have you done it, or like
design?
Yeah, like is that something that people go on to do like from like taking like these courses, or is that like a totally different thing?
You could, if you have design skills. This class does not teach design skills, as is very obvious. But if you have design skills, knowing HTML and CSS and a bit of JavaScript plus design skills is a great combo. People definitely love that. But there's people that just have design skills and they just work with someone who does the CSS. I do not do design. I have very occasionally made design decisions and then been like, I should have been doing this because I'm not qualified. But I have very occasionally done it when it was kind of like a look, just make some decisions, because with the budget, we're not going to design it. You just throw some things in there. Very often I might use something like Bootstrap, which we're going to learn about next week. That gives you some sort of starting styling. You can see, what is this? Okay, wait. Where is it? Button. If you're like, what should a button look like? Here's an option. And Bootstrap kind of says like, here's one you could use. You can make your buttons look like this. So typically, if it's on me to design something, guess what? It's going to look like Bootstrap. Because I'm not qualified to make these choices. To make the choices like a slightly darker shade of blue and what color of blue? No, I don't make those choices, generally speaking. You can, though. That is absolutely, if you have graphic design skills, people will be very happy to have you have both design and developing skills. That's a beautiful combo. That's not what this course is trying to put you towards. We're more development side of it. We're going to get into React and DOM manipulation. So we're going to be much more focused on development. This is just a little sprinkle of a design moment. But absolutely, you could go on to do stuff like that. If you get your design experience somewhere else, because I don't have it. The question in the chat, is it considered inline styling when you add the class to HTML? No, it's not. Good question. Your brain is not dead. This is not inline styling, and is not inline styling when you say class equals, because the actual styling is over here. It's nice and separate it out. If I instead tried to, in fact, you couldn't even do this because you can't even do the hover in inline styling, but if I took this and stuck this in a style equals this garbage, style equals, and that is inline styling. That's what we don't want to do. Great question. I don't know, I've thrown like 500 words at y'all. You don't even, brain can't just like perfectly take all those terms in. This is craziness. There's like, yes.
It's a lot. I'm glad you
super-
said that because I like try to listen, and then sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like a bunch of words, and I have to like
Yes.
rewatch this because it's like normal
Yeah.
people. Maybe not though. I don't know how normal I am or
Yeah, no,
not.
that is super normal. I mean, I like to say every time we introduce stuff to you, the goal is for you to take in like 10%. And then the next 10% is not even that much, right? Just let a lot of it's gonna flow right past you, or like go in your head. You'll be like, I'm gonna hold that, and it's gonna fall out, right?
Yeah.
Just take in 10%. Don't even try to like remember it all. Just be like, brain, what do you think of this? Just let it flow through. The next time you're exposed to it, you'll get another 10%, and we'll get you to 100. You know, maybe you take like 5% each time you're exposed. You get a little bit more. So, that is super normal. I love that this is recorded, so you can come back to it. What's really effective is let yourself just start to forget it, just to be like, wait, what was any of that? Then review it. That's really good for your brain. That's the thing. Really good for your learning. So coming back and reviewing some of this stuff. Also, if you forget it, you can just Google it as well. Google
Just
it.
as
do a
long as
little
you can
refresher.
remember the things that you need to Google, but for the most part,
No,
I feel like there's a bunch of things that I need to Google all the time. So
there's a lot of like CSS cheat sheets out there too. I have a bunch of links for different things. I like the CSS visual reference. This is a visual reference on properties that you can use. So if you're like, what the freak are all these properties? It's going to tell you. Like this background position one, it has a bunch of pictures to show you. If you do background position bottom right, this is what it would look like. Background position center, this is what it's going to look like, right? To help you sort of visually see what some of these things do. This align items one is going to show you what it means to align items in different ways, and talks about, this applies to Flexbox, but which we'll talk about in just a second. But so
Do
lots
these
of like
slides live on the Slack channel again? Is that where they live at the end of all of this? I
yes,
used to
I
look
will
at them
post
and then
them.
I forgot. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I like to share them before class, and I always forget, but I will post them immediately. Week 8 slides. Yes, I post them on the Slack channel. Also, typically at the end of the class, I'll post the links to all the slides and all the code, just in case you lost one somewhere. But yeah.
I need to download them all because I feel like I'll want to.
Yeah. You
know
can
what I
also
mean?
bookmark them. But yeah, you can download them, bookmark them, screenshot, whatever helps you. You can also just like go bookmark these links or whatever is helpful to you. But yeah.
That's smart. Smarter than me. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Cassidy, I feel so at peace with you just like stroking your cat. Like I just makes the whole class feel more at peace. I feel like. Thank you for your service.
Yay.
Yeah, he loves to get in the way of everything that I'm concentrating on.
It's so soothing, just chilling there while you stroke your cat, pet your cat. It's
He
amazing.
wants to learn CSS too.
Anyways, back to this stuff. Yeah, so there's a lot of cheat sheets and things out there. Get a good little cheat sheet, bookmark it, do a lot of Googling. Don't try to like shove it out in your brain. Just like let it flow through, and each time you'll take in a little more. And this is all in the recording, so of that as well. And these are like little like references, you know, they're kind of just simple little references that can help you remember some of this stuff as well. So slowly but surely it will go in. It's a marathon, not a sprint, you know. It's kind of like what is it? It's like trying to dye something. You don't just like try to dye, you let it sit, right? It's not a thing. I don't know. Cooking pasta, I don't know. It's like, well, you gotta wait. You gotta be patient. Slowly but surely. Yeah, it's like cooking pasta. Moving metaphors. It's like cooking pasta. You don't just like take a pasta and like sear it, right? You're not just like pasta cooked, right? We put the pasta in the hot water and we just wait. And every little bit, the pasta will get a little softer and a little softer. That's your brains. We're trying to cook them. Okay. So you just want to keep your brain in the hot water. That's all. It's occasional rest, right? Just keep your brain in this stuff, and slowly but surely your noodle will cook. Ruby, what's your question?
Okay, so I was kind of messing with CSS earlier this week, and like
Oh, baby.
on the elements, like I guess on the element part when you're on the browser, when it says
Mhm.
invalid property or something like that, does that just mean that you're not calling it? That you're not calling it?
Ooh, like when you mouse over something and it says like invalid property.
Yeah. Like in my case,
Is
it's like a little triangle with like a question or an exclamation point.
Yeah, let me see. Wait, let me see if I can do it. If we come here to nav bar, I think we can get it. Where's it? Nav bar. There we go. This guy,
Yeah,
unknown
that.
property name or whatever. It's because you got a typo. This isn't in fact a property. Or maybe you have the wrong value over here. The value isn't bit. It's basically a syntax error.
Oh.
And it's mad at your syntax. Mine is because I didn't put the D on background. You got some kind of a typo or something.
Okay,
If you
cool.
want,
That's good to
after
know.
class, I could take a look and help you figure out what it is.
Okay. I tried to do polka dots. Like, I'm so happy I finally got it. I was like, I cried. I was like,
That is so cool. You have to share that at some point. Put a screenshot somewhere. I want to see. But yeah, CSS very much is learned through the playing around with it. It's really how you learn it. You just keep your brain in that hot water and mess with it. CSS is also like, to get good at CSS, there's no shortcut. It just takes like years. And you don't have to be fantastic at CSS to like get a job. At least it took me years. I don't know. You probably do it faster if you're smart about it. But I just sort of fumbled about, and it took me years to get good at CSS. It's a very like, you get a feel for it, and it's really quirky, right? So it just takes time to like learn how to wrangle it how you want. Get it, like befriending a feral cat, guys. I'm full of weird metaphors today. Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome with my weird metaphors. Anyways, where are we at here? What are we? Oh wow, we've used like all of it. You have such good question. Sometimes I teach this course and like no one says anything the whole time. And then I'm like, well, we have an hour left. You get your money's worth. I love it. Some links to talk about. Oh, and one other thing I want to talk about is Flexbox. Let's talk about that actually really quick. Because that's a good one to talk about. So our beautiful thing here. we could fix we can get rid of this font family here. We can get rid of all this actually. Let me do let's do color white. There it is. Oh, that one's still blue. What is making it blue? Oh, look, if you're like, what is making that blue? You inspect it and you come see, it's the color changing hover class, which I actually don't want on there anymore because now I'm gonna make it look more legit. So we're gonna take that off. There we go. Okay. We got our beautiful thing. Those have a green because I told them to be green. Right here, I told them to be green. So those are dark green. What else? So if I want these to be next to each other, that is one of the big things that you tend to want to do in CSS. And there's a lot of old ways to do it that you shouldn't use, generally speaking. Generally speaking, you're going to regret it if you use the old ways of getting things next to each other in CSS. One, do not use a table to do this. Two, do not use float. Float left, float right. I recommend don't use those. Unless you're very specifically doing something that's really about floating, but generally speaking, if you're trying to get things next to each other, don't float them. It's how we used to do it, and it's freaking annoying. so annoying. Do not use position. Oh, what?
What about span?
Oh, a span in order to get things next to each other? Oh, that's a good question. I would not use it. A span is an inline element, which sometimes you need an inline element, but you don't want to make something that really should be a block level element an inline element. That's a really good question though. So like this bit of text in the paragraph is a span, and that makes sense. It's just a bit of inline text in the paragraph. When we have a bunch of LIs are block level elements. They don't go next to each other by default, but we can absolutely get them next to each other with CSS. We wouldn't want to change this all to be spans instead, just to get them next to each other, when this is probably the better way to lay it out. You don't want to pick your HTML based on your styling. You want to pick your HTML based on what it is. This one makes sense to be a span because it is just a little bit of inline stuff in there. This one makes more sense to be a UL and LIs because it's a list of links. At least in my head. Really good question. Another one I highly recommend to stay away from is position absolute or position relative. There are times when position absolute and position relatives are fantastic. I do use those. I use float very, very, very rarely. Position absolute and position relative I do use. They're great if you want to make like a modal that like pops up in the middle of the page or something like that. Like a little alert box. Position absolute is great for that. Position relative can be great when you want to get two things on top of each other. Like you have like a picture and you want something to overlap it a little bit or something. But do not use them to get things next to each other is what I would recommend. If you want things next to each other, the best way that I know of is to use Flexbox. It is freaking awesome. Getting a good handle on Flexbox is really, really useful. Takes a bit to learn. I'm not going to fully teach you Flexbox. I'm going to demonstrate what it can do for you, and I'm going to give you some resources that you can dig more in there. Again, depending on where you want to go with your career, you might do a lot of CSS or a little CSS or no CSS. So if you want to be like a UI developer or like a designer developer, knowing Flexbox is going to be essential. If you want to be more like a backend full stack, knowing Flexbox is, if you want to be backend, you don't need to know Flexbox. If you want to be like full stack, then knowing Flexbox, it could be useful, but it's not going to be a deal breaker. So that's kind of, things to keep in mind. So I am going to put display flex on this UL. Oh my gosh, I keep reading my semicolons. You need semicolons at the end of every line. It's not forgiving like JavaScript. And now look at that. They're all next to each other. That is what Flexbox does. And it gives you an enormous amount of options. Let me put these next to each other. There we go. No. Okay. Go away. Flexbox also gives you an enormous number of options. My favorite resource for Flexbox, well, I have a couple actually. This is a new one that I really like, but this one's good as well. This one walks you through kind of how Flexbox works, and kind of talks through it. So you can use that one. Also, this one I really like. It's just kind of a reference of all the different properties you can use when you do Flexbox and what they do. For example, if you want things to be spaced out, you can use justify content, and then it's going to sort of space them out in the way that you want. There's all kinds of different options. So I could do over here in mine. Where is it? Where did we go? There we go. If I want these spaced out, I could do, where are we? Justify content, and I could do space between. And now there's sort of space between. I can do all kinds of different options right here to space them how I want them to. Start or end. Does it end? No, they're all at the end. I can space them out however I want. I can also, rather than doing justify content, I can just put some padding on each one. Padding 10 pixels. Now they're going to be spaced out just because there's padding around each one, which pushes them away from each other. So there's a lot of different options for spacing them out once you use Flexbox, but putting display flex on their parent makes the children line up next to each other. It's like making the parent strict. He said, putting display flex, now there's a strict parent like friggin' Von Traps, and he just like, woo, and they all line up. I'm full of weird metaphors today. Okay, niche metaphors. Have you all seen Sound of Music? Okay. Also, I probably want these next to this. So if I want these two next to each other, I can put Flexbox. I can put display flex on their parent. So I want this H1 and this UL to be next to each other instead of one on top of each other. So I can put flex on this one. So if I come back in here, I'm like made it mad at me, but I can do display flex, and now they are next to each other. What did I do? Oh, it's Batman down here. That makes sense.
So Flexbox makes it in like a row.
Generally speaking, yes. There's a lot of options with Flexbox. It's very powerful. You can make it be in a column too. It's a way to get things sort of aligned with each other, how you want them to be. You can do this one too, align item center. That way you can see, I guess it is kind of already aligned center. They're already kind of centered on each other. That's pretty nice actually, but there's a lot of options for how to center things. But yes, it's to get things next to each other. Oh, good question. Is there a specific type of measurement we should use the most? Pixels, point, percent, VH. Here's what I recommend. Use REM when we're talking about, I would say use RAM anytime you can, or something like REM. VH can be good as well. Something that is responsive, which is something we haven't talked about as much, but basically what responsive means is that the size is easy to change by the user in terms of if the user zooms in or zooms out, we want the text to change as well. Now, most modern browsers will change the text even if you do pixels, but pixels is supposed to be kind of very fixed. It's exactly that number of pixels, doesn't change kind of a thing. Whereas REM is based on the font size that they have picked, and so will scale better with zooming in and zooming out. Like if they have it set up so they're vision impaired and they have it set up so that the text is bigger, we want the whole website to be really kind to that. Another thing, this is kind of side to it, but a good thing to talk about is that around 50% of all web traffic is mobile. At least it was a few years ago. It might be even higher now. So it's very important that your website look good on mobile and be very usable on mobile. In fact, Google will drop you down the search results if your website doesn't work well on mobile. Because they're like, because it's annoying. If you open a website and it's annoying on mobile, you just don't want to deal with it. Right? You're just like, ugh, what is this garbage? You don't want to zoom in and scan around.
How do you make sure? I watched it like a video or something about that a little bit, but it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Is there anything that's like, yes.
How do you make it look good on mobile?
Yeah.
You see how bad this looks?
It looks great. You just need more chairs for Chairs R Us. It's like the Toys R Us for patio.
Yeah, exactly. So this little button right here lets you try it out on different devices. It's going funky. I've done some funky things here, but
what little button was that?
This one right here.
Oh,
yeah. Lets you try it out on different devices and see what it looks like. You can see my nav bar is not taking up the full width, which is not ideal. That might be because, wait, let me see. Yeah, I don't have that one meta. Do you remember that one meta that was like meta viewport, whatever? I can't remember what it is. I do not have it memorized.
I don't remember it at all. This is great though.
Meta name equals viewport. Remember, I was like, why would we need that for CSS? And it will fix my CSS. Ready? So see, this one looks horrible if you were like looking at that on an iPad or whatever. But if we put that in, I bet this will fix it. Let's see. No, that made it worse. Well, I did not fix it. But we want to, oh no, wait. Still being real funky right there. But we want to make sure that our styling is going to look right at all of the sizes. Why is it so funky? I'm not actually sure. Maybe I'm missing another one.
A meta tag?
Actually. Other meta tag, but it's really struggling with my CSS on mobile. But you want to set things up such that they will work nicely, responsively is what it's called. We're going to learn a ton about this in Bootstrap. Bootstrap is set up to make it really easy to make your stuff responsive. And we'll look at this a bunch in Bootstrap, but there's a lot of options for doing that. Doing things like not setting a width, but instead setting a min width, like the minimum it could be, but it could still go bigger than that, or things like that, or setting a max width so it could go smaller, but it will stop growing after a particular thing. Things that are sort of designed around this idea that you don't know how wide it's going to be. So make sure it's going to look nice at all the sizes. REM, oh, someone asked, can you explain REM? I'm trying to remember exactly how REM works. No, it's like REM sleep, REM CSS. It's it's a measurement, the font size of the root element. What this basically means is just that like I did my font sizing here based on rems to say this should be 10 times as big as the normal font size, and this one should be half as big as the normal font size, is basically what rem means. We sometimes also use it for spacing, to space based on the font size, because often the space around should be the same or should be based on how big the font is. So we use rem in that context. Definitely, if you want to understand deeper, you'll want to go deep on how to do responsive design, but we're going to get like an easy starter thing on responsive design when we go to Bootstrap. It's got like sort of nice built-in setup. I truly don't know, why is this like this is so bad, and I don't even know why. It might be the picture freaking it out, actually. Might be the picture. Let's do this.
Like the
all
min-max.
images should have a width of 100%. That fix it. That helps. That helped. I think the picture does some degree.
Ooh,
Also,
look at
this
the
huge
text,
text
though.
is probably doing it as well. Let's take that out. There we go. It's getting better. That one's still huge. So let's take off this one. Don't be 10 rems. There we go. Take off this tiny text because that's a horrible idea. Never make your text that tiny, just for demonstrating purposes. Okay, now it's looking a lot more normal. So it's my weird styling. Weird styling can mess up your scene. But when you take it off now, we've got something that looks a lot more like normalish at different sizes. And if we do this like responsive, we can see by doing width 100% on the picture scales with the size of the window, which you may or may not want, but can be good, can give you a nice look, depending on how you're building things. So just something to keep in mind.
And was that called
Good.
scaling? Like the min-max thing?
It's called responsive design. That's typically what we call it in CSS. If you Google like responsive design or responsive CSS, you'll find a lot of resources on how to do CSS responsively.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, wow, we're burning through time, but this is really good stuff. I do love it. Adam, what's your question?
How would you incorporate JavaScript into this?
Ooh, we will do that in 2 weeks. Of your enthusiasm, we're gonna get there. What is it? Yeah, 2 weeks. We'll incorporate JavaScript in. We're gonna spend 3 weeks actually on incorporating JavaScript into this, so we're gonna get there, and I'm very excited. Ruby.
So when you say like responsive and we're working with Bootstrap, would we have to know like about like the grid system or like the grid something like that to kind of
Bootstrap has a grid that allows you to make things responsive very easily, and we're gonna dig into that next week.
Okay.
Another good segue. We will definitely be talking about that next week. So to the preview? I don't know. A couple of things I want to share in here. I know we've hit 30. I'm sorry. If you gotta go, head on out. But I'm just gonna talk through these links real quick. So a couple different things on Flexbox that can be helpful. If you want to learn Flexbox, it's nothing better than Flexbox Proggy, baby. This is a little game that teaches you Flexbox. It has a bunch of different levels, and you write little Flexbox properties in order to get it to do what you want. Like this one is teaching you the justify content one. So it says get the frog on the lily pad. So if we do justify content flex end, like it says right here, the frog is now on the lily pad because we told the items to go to the end. So it's just like and then you can go to the next level. It just has you like with these different froggies have to get them on different places by playing with the different properties, which is literally how I learned Flexbox. Because I love little games, okay? So lots of resources for learning Flexbox, Flexbox Proggy, this Flexbox, an interactive guide to Flexbox, or this reference that you can use. Lots of options for learning Flexbox and other great things out there as well. There is sort of a competitor, different option than Flexbox called Grid. I haven't used Grid as much because Bootstrap uses Flexbox, so that tends to be what I go for. But grid is another option that works off of a grid. And there was grid garden so that you can learn grid. This one teaches you the grid properties to learn grid. You use kind of one or the other because there's sort of two options for getting things next to each other, for positioning things. So use those, not float position, not position absolute, not float left. Using position absolute, you're almost always going to regret that unless you very clearly need position absolute. So be careful with that one. Visual reference, we talked about that. One other thing, if you want to practice selectors, there's another little game. I love little games. Here's a little game that has you type in a CSS selector, and there's little dancing bento boxes, which I'm into. So you have to try to write a selector once you select the bento boxes. So I could write an element selector that would select these fake bento elements, and then you hit enter, and I did it. So then it takes you to the next level, and now you gotta select the plate. The fancy plate. So you got to write a selector that's going to select just that plate or whatever. Just as you practice with a bunch of different types of selectors, some crazy ones as well, to get used to them, get a sense of them a little bit. So I love little games.
What do you do if you think that Code Wars is too hard? Like, I really haven't been looking at Code Wars because I feel like I'm like drowning in my schooling. But then I went to the coffee shop and I met up with someone and I was like, do you do Code Wars? And he was like, no, I don't. And then he was like, you can show me. And I was like, I don't know how to do like Code Wars, but I should. I'm kind of supposed to because it's supposed, like whatever with practice.
Yeah.
And it seemed hard. And I was like a level 8 and I was like, I can do hard. I keep doing this in this course where I'm like, I can do hard stuff. And then it's like hard.
Yes. Code Wars is really hard. And how do you get used to it? How do you get through it? Ask for help and then try it, and ask for help and then try and fail, and ask for help and try and fail over and over and over and over. Great. Until at some point you can do it, kind of. And then so it's just, there's no easy way, right? Ask for help. Start to do it, get some kind of crap code down there, then ask for help when it fails horribly. Try again, get some kind of, there's the good news is there's tons of them, so get partway through it, ask for help. You can ask me for help. I'm obsessed with Code Wars, so you send me a Code Wars problem, I'll be like, ooh, what is it? And I'll give you little like hints on to help slowly. We want to slowly help you along, like riding a bike. Well, you get help and then slowly you'll get used to it. Sherry, what's your question?
Do I have to import something to use Flexbox, or does my browser already know?
It's built into CSS.
Oh, okay.
Yep. It's already just in the CSS. It's not a separate library, it's part of CSS. So beautiful. It wasn't here like 7 years ago, and I'm bitter that I had to spend so much time without it because it's beautiful. Rosie.
Okay, this is probably a terrible question, but I've just been wondering, have you ever had anybody that takes this course and then takes it again, like the same exact course?
Yes, I've had people retake after getting most of the way through.
Okay.
I never had someone retake who went all the way through, but I've had someone get I had someone who got 12 weeks in and then just got kind of overwhelmed and retook.
Does it cost the same?
Don't know.
How much?
Yeah.
I know like at the beginning we went over the whole like how much access we have to like which resources after the fact, because it takes a minute to be able to get employment and know what you're doing. I forget that stuff, and I've been wondering.
That's a good question. Yeah, I want to say you have access to it forever, but I'm not
Can you
sure.
like go through and like watch other people's like I've heard you say like, oh, this is a great recording, because sometimes people watch these things, and like at the beginning of this I was like, oh, I'm gonna be so good because I'm taking so much of my time to free up and I plan this out and I'm gonna like learn all these things and watch extra stuff, and now I'm like my brain is not big enough. I'm creating wrinkles. I'm making it wrinkly,
totally.
And it's not like that.
I'm pretty sure. So you have access to the Slack forever, and the Slack has all the recordings. So I think you have access to the recordings forever, the recordings for new classes and stuff. Have I shared with you all? I have just a YouTube playlist that I just made of all my class recordings. So if you're ever like trying to find it, because it can be really hard to find old recordings because they're so freaking so I made I made a playlist that has just all my class recordings. I started it like 6 months ago or something. So it has all my classes from the past 6 months, including this class's classes and other ones as well. But it's much easier to dig through and find the old classes, or you could watch other classes if you wanted, or other people's too. But I will post a link to that. And I try to keep it up to date. Sometimes it takes me like a week or something to keep it up to date, but I try to keep it up to date with all my videos. So
that's okay. All my
that can be helpful after
funny
class to review.
And me like getting emotional it's timeless now.
That is immortalized forever, dude. It's gonna help so many people who are so stressed and they're like, I'm not alone. Thank you. But yeah, so those will be available so that you could like after this course go through and review, because after this course you're kind of dumped out a little bit. You'll be in the Slack channel forever. You have access to material, you have access to recordings. I believe you still have access to office hours after the course ends, but not mentor sessions.
God, okay. Okay.
Yeah, not mentor sessions because those you got to be like paying for, right? But office hours, I believe you always have access to and can go to after you finish. And you always have access to like the Slack channels. So there's a lot of people who have graduated that stick around in the Slack channels, helping other people out, getting help. So I've seen lots of students still chilling in the Slack channels and stuff. And you can still hit up me. I'm still here after this class ends as well. I won't be like your dedicated instructor, but I will be very interested in how it's going. So
just having friends that know what they're doing, that's like, and not that you have to know all of the everything and stuff like that, but just having context that I can
I highly recommend have contacts because it's really hard to keep going once you're just sort of thrown out into the world and you're like, so stay in touch. Tell me how it's going. Even if you're like, I'm so sorry, I haven't coded for a month because I got overwhelmed. Tell me about it. I love to hear about it. People have done that and then gotten jobs. It happens. Rosie, what's your question?
Okay, so I just looked at like my grade for the first time in this class. I didn't know that like we're like, I was like trying to just avoid that because I was like, I'm good. I don't need to know. I was like, I
love it.
I was like, I think I'm passing. I don't know, but it's a lot. It's great. It's so much better than I thought it would be. So my question is that like, though, like, is this like regular, like when you're in school, like you just need like a C to pass? Like, is that the same thing for this course or like, like I don't have a C, but
yeah. I don't know. I want to say F is failing. I feel like F is failing in my book. I don't know. But here's the thing too. Employers don't care. So if you care, sure, but employers, you can fail this course and get a job. They don't care. They just care what can you do. Okay. And they're unlikely to be impressed by great grades. If you have a perfect grade, they're unlikely to be impressed by that. They're going to be impressed by what you can do. Which hopefully if you have great grades, you can do stuff. But
can they like ask, like, will people like ask you, like, what did you get in this course that you took?
I doubt it.
Okay.
Doubt it.
Okay.
What?
Well, yeah, that too.
I mean, I can't say for sure. I mean, obviously any hiring manager can do anything. And I'm sure most of you have been in an interview that you're like, why did they ask that? That's weird. They can ask whatever they want, really, but that seems like a very strange thing to ask. I can't imagine them doing that. I don't know what that would tell them, really. Because it is possible to get a great grade in this class and not learn, if you just like, you can find ways, finding copy pasting things and just like getting off of other people. I don't know. There's lots of ways to not actually learn and still get good grades in this class. It's not really about grades,
Is this might be like a Christina question, but like the week 6, the like big project we turned in and stuff, like it still hasn't been graded. So like I have like a good grade right now, but once that's graded, it might just plummet. So I'm kind of like, oh gosh, but it doesn't really have a timeline on it. So do you know if that was actually like due that week, or like does it matter? Like, or did it not need to be turned in? Because I'm like
was
confused.
due that week.
Okay.
I think it was due that week, but I think they're pretty chill about it. Because again, the goal is for you to learn, and week 6 is very commonly turned in late, very commonly. So what'd you say, Heather?
That week was so stressful, and I felt like it seemed like everybody, like, I know that that was one of the first. I think there was something else that I had overlooked that I had turned in late, but that was like the first one where I was like, this is so hard. I feel like I don't understand what I'm doing. And then coming to class and listening to people that I'm like, you're a really good student, and it doesn't sound like you handed it in either. And it made me feel better. So I'm just kind of like, they're like, maybe they don't grade on a curve or something, but I feel like everybody literally turned it in late except for maybe somebody.
Yeah, it's very, very commonly turned in late. They may have even extended the deadline on it a week or something. I'm not sure because I'm not overgrading. I don't do any grading at Prominio at least. So I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't stress about it. I wouldn't worry about it.
Are like the quizzes, because I was looking at like the quizzes, and I'm gonna be honest, I've failed almost every quiz that we've taken because I've done it like 3 times, and like it doesn't give you the credit when you do it like the second or third time or whatever. So like that's a very low grade, but it doesn't seem to be affecting the rest of my grade. So like do those two, like does the week 6 project and the week 12 project like have a huge impact? And like, or like,
don't know. I'm not sure. You would have to ask Christina that. I just wouldn't worry about it. The other boot camp I teach for, everyone fails the quizzes. That one I do grading, and most people fail the quizzes. And it's not even like counted as part of it. It's just part of your learning. Because again, the grades don't matter. We made them up. We made them up. And
you're gonna get
cares.
a job. You're gonna get a job.
It's like a grade in like an art class if you want to be an artist. Like imagine being like, okay, I'm an artist, and like someone's like, okay, well, can you paint a mural? And you're like, oh yeah, and they're like, but what grade did you get in your art class? Like they're not gonna care, right? They're gonna want to see pictures of your work. Like they're not gonna care what grade you got in art class. Like they're gonna care what art can you make, and that is how programming is as well. They don't care, you know. At least everything I've seen, I've never heard of anybody caring, even slightly. Whether you do great or horrendous, if you literally fail this course completely, and I just can't see that mattering in the tiniest bit, either good or bad in your job search. I mean, I suppose it matters if you care, or if like, I don't know, it's affecting somebody to grade. I don't know. If you have a reason to care, then care. But if you don't, I wouldn't worry about it. I would focus on, I wouldn't let that like sort of distract you. I would focus on what helps your learning. And taking a quiz, failing it, and then taking it again and again until you get it is great for your learning. Excellent. Keep that up. That's awesome. That's great for your learning. So I wouldn't worry about it, you know, because you're doing the stuff. I would just focus on, and in terms of falling behind in week 6, I'm like, who cares? Because it's decently easy to catch up in week 7 and 8 because they're not that hard, right? The one that does tend to matter is falling behind in week 12. Which is why I had a student that was retaking because he fell behind in week 12. Because week 12, we go into week 13, which is React, and it does not have that like chill period to catch up. So that's just something to be aware of. Week 12 is another project that you're working on, but you can start on it early. So starting on it early could be a good idea to make sure you don't fall behind, because week 13 is actually really important and really important material where we start React. So that's where it matters. I think the only thing I would say from teaching boot camps and seeing people like apply to jobs afterwards, the only thing that matters in a boot camp is not falling so far behind that you can't catch up unless you're willing to retake. And then it's still, again, it doesn't matter, just retake and go through it again. If you're willing to retake, fall behind as you need to, and then retake when it seems like the right time. Because as you start to fall behind, the classes become less useful to you, right? If you're a week behind and haven't even looked at the material for the next week, then that class is not going to be very useful to you because your brain isn't ready for that, right? And so if the classes start being less useful to you, I would look at retaking. You want to get your money's worth. Again, I don't know the payments for retaking. Sorry. You'd have to ask Christina. I know so few things about the admin side of things. But I would just focus on, am I getting my learnings amount? Is my brain being stretched? And then once it's sort of beyond what can stretch your brain because you're too far behind, I would see if you can catch up, which week 7 and 8, hopefully you can catch up from week 1 through 6. But if you fall behind in week 12, you might want to look at retaking to make sure your brain is ready for 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
So really, we should like go look at week 12. Anytime now.
Week 10. That's what I would go look at. If you want, if these weeks are like chill, go look at week 10 and start on it now, because week 10 is the material for week 12. Week 10, 11, and 12, it's all basically the same material. It's working with the DOM, and it's so confusing. It's fun. I love it. But it can be very confusing working with the DOM if you've never done it before. And so that is week 10, 11, 12. So you can start looking at that right now, week 10. Just start, again, get that 10% in your brain, right? You could look up a video of me teaching week 10 early if you want. I don't promise I won't repeat things, but if you wanted, you could do that, again, to just help you not fall behind in week 12 if that's important to you. Again, there's nothing wrong with your brain working at a different speed than the people who made the boot camp dreamed up, right? Nothing wrong with that. That's your brain has to turn to be ready to think in a new way. And if your brain was pointed this way and really good at this stuff, it's got a lot of ways to turn. So if your brain's taking a long time to turn to think in this way, you might need more time than the arbitrary amount they picked for the boot camp. And then things like retaking, I think, are a great idea. Because then you still get that support.
Pay. I just don't want to pay again.
Fair
That's
enough,
my
yeah.
thing. I would retake it. I would help you teach by asking my like weird ass questions and stuff like that. That's great. But I just don't want to like pay over and over again. You know what
I mean, yes, that makes sense. I don't know how retaking works with Prominio. The other bootcamp I teach for retaking is like a small-ish fee. So lots of people do it to just, again, give themselves more time to just help the bootcamp line up better with your timeline. But I don't know how much it costs for Prominio, so I don't know if it is a good idea. Sorry.
Who
Ask
would
Christina.
know that kind of thing? Because like
Christina,
I would just to like cement things in my head. I don't know why I'm like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I would redo, like revise, because I want to be really good at it. When people are like, just start applying before you're ready, I'm like, that is so not the kind of person that I am. But I guess that like that's what I'll be practicing, right? It's confidence and like cockiness, I guess, right? Being like over assured of myself.
There's also, there's also options to kind of just be reviewing the stuff without paying to take the boot camp again, and instead be reviewing like going to office hours. I do some stuff that if you're interested, you could reach out to me on for people, right? I love you. I do some stuff for people who finished a boot camp. And you can be really like, where am I? What's happening? My brain is mush. To help you continue to review, like I do review stuff and practicing for interviews and stuff like that. So I do a little group like that. If you're interested when the boot camp ends, sort of continue to solidify what you know, stretch yourself. I'm not kind, I stretch you in my little group. It's all about, I'm a meanie. Well, I try to really get you ready for jobs, but I do run a little group for people who have finished their boot camp, so that's an option, and it's free. So.
You don't seem mean. You don't seem mean.
What? I mean, in that, like, I'll stretch you. I'll put stuff in front of you that you're like, what the freak is this? Because that's how it feels interviewing for jobs. So gotta get you ready, you know. And I'm mean in that way, but I'll be like so encouraging while we do it.
Love it.
Does someone else have a question? If you need extra help during the week, check out Programming with Mosh on YouTube. Ooh, yes, that's a great recommendation. He helped me a lot with understanding various concepts. Yes. Thanks, Daniel. Programming with Mosh is a great YouTube channel. I also love the Net Ninja. The Net Ninja makes great videos as well. So finding a YouTuber that you like is a great thing as well. Find another teacher with Promenio that you like and hear it from a different perspective. When I teach things, it's usually about 50% the same between classes and 50% different. So if you look at an old class of mine, if you've recently been in that class, some of it will be repeat, some of it won't. Usually towards the end, I try to make it different every time. Like the very last class, I try to make it different every single time what I build, so that you could watch all of those and see a different example of the same stuff, but like a different example every time. But a lot of stuff I do very similar things. Like this class was probably 80% different than how I've taught it other times. So that's an option as well. Like, if you want more of me, geez, but that's an option as well. Like when you finish the boot camp, if you want kind of not the exact same content, but more that teaches the same thing. You all ask so many questions that this class tends to be different than what I've taught it before, because we go along with the questions. So. And there's certain weeks where I try to always make it different so that you could watch other ones. I don't know if that's helpful. Bro code is really good too. Bro code.
This might
haven't
be a
heard of
weird
bro code.
question,
Go.
Like
but so when I originally like took, like I just saw an ad for this and I just like took
Mhm.
the quiz that like it sends you or whatever. And then I was like deciding between taking like front end or back end or like the other data engineering one that like Promenio like offers. So like, do you know of a lot of people that like go on to take like other boot camps like with those programs, or do a lot of people just like stay in their lane and like stick to one?
Yes, people do take the back end boot camp after this or before this sometimes. I could throw out a statistic. I'm not sure if this is exactly right, but I would say like maybe 20% do that. And go on to another boot camp. It means you're cramming more things in your head. And it does tend to mean that you'll start to forget the front end stuff as you cram in the back end stuff, right? And then you can come back and get it back in there, right? But it can be hard to cram that much in your brain over the course of like a year, that many new things. I have heard of people basically, a lot of people do a Udemy course. So that's way cheaper, right? It's like $10, $15. They'll do a Udemy course over the same material. Very occasionally people will take a boot camp over the same material from a different boot camp. I have seen people do that. Again, it's all about, right, like your brain moves at the speed it moves, and sometimes you need more support for longer. And so like finding options for that makes sense. You really can't, you can rush your learning in the sense that putting in time makes a big difference, but at some point you're going to reach the capacity of how much your brain can turn over the course of a week or whatever. So getting yourself more support at the end can be good. Just having access to like a person you can ask questions to.
Are you like allowed to say what other program you teach for, or like what other boot camp you teach for, or are you not?
yeah, plug yourself.
I mean, I understand if you can't, like that makes sense.
You will. I feel like I probably shouldn't put in the recording. I don't know. I mean, you can look at my LinkedIn and you can see it.
Okay, cool.
There we go. You can look at my LinkedIn.
Okay, cool.
It's right there. Because I do teach for another boot camp that goes over the same material. Basically, I teach for just the React portion of it. It's broken up so you have different teachers for all the sections, whereas we go the whole thing. I teach just the React portion for another boot camp.
Okay, cool.
There's pluses and minuses. I will say that both boot camps have pluses and minuses. I have pluses and minuses about Promenio. I have pluses and minuses about the other boot camp I teach for as well. So I couldn't even say which one I think is better, because they both have things I like and things I don't like about them in terms of how effective I think they are. But yeah, I have had people jump to the other one that I teach for because they want just like more boot camp, which like, look, I love it. But Very rarely, but I have had like 1 or 2 people, or maybe a second person that looked into it. But yeah, it's just like getting more support sometimes is what you need. Granted, we're only 8 weeks into this one, so you still have support for another 8 weeks. It's 9, whatever it is. But if you're getting stressed, like, I don't know if I can get all this in, like, there's a lot of options to continue to get support beyond it. I think the best thing to do is just focus on what is most effective for your learning, and let the other things fall into place where they fall, let your grades fall where they fall. If you start falling behind, and that's just what's most effective for you, is to let yourself fall behind, then you just got to look into options. If you cannot afford any retake or anything, though, you don't want to fall behind, because you really will lose out on the later stuff. Your brain won't be able to take it in if you haven't kept up. So if you have 0 money for any other options but this boot camp, it's really best if you don't fall behind. And the most effective way to not fall behind is not falling behind in week 10, 11, 12. Falling behind in 13, 14, 15, 16, you can catch up, you're good. But if you fall behind in 10, 11, 12, that's like a linchpin spot that's really hard to catch up, because we hit react and start putting brand new, totally different stuff in your heads. So looking at week 10 now could help with that. Just me throwing out opinions about what might help is looking at week 10 now. Potentially watching a class now on week 10, if your brain has room right now, if it has room. We're going to use Bootstrap. The next week's thing is Bootstrap, and we're going to use Bootstrap throughout the rest of this course. So we're not really going to use a lot of CSS throughout the rest of this course. This is kind of the little primer on CSS, but we're going to use a lot of Bootstrap throughout the rest of this course. So you'll see a lot of examples of using Bootstrap throughout the rest of this course, and have moments to, it's not that hard to come back around to Bootstrap later and like get a little more comfortable with it. So getting free into week 10, 11, 12 could do a lot of good things for you.
I could throw money together, but it's just like, I don't want to if I don't have to.
Fair
and
enough.
I would just
Fair enough.
if I was going to take more things, I just want like, just be like a little bit farther along so that it's, I don't know, just like making the most of my time and wanting my brain to work. But also, hey, for the grading part, Rosie, do they give any feedback? Because I've been like sort of anxious, and then sometimes I'm like, I should just check it, because then maybe I'll be less anxious about the grades and stuff. But I'm kind of like, I don't really want to look at it, because I'm like, well, I handed it in, and it's not like seeing that the grade's not great or something is going to be like particularly helpful unless they gave feedback. And I was wondering about that this week, being like, should I just look at the grades and they'll have like feedback, or is that
They showed,
does anyone know?
They showed
sorry,
on
Rosie.
they showed on like code week 3, like there's like feedback on it, and it says like your code looks good, but like this one error, like just be like, it like shows like something, but like the other ones don't have anything on them. So I don't know if that means that those were terrible or not, maybe just unremarkable. But yeah, there are a few.
I've heard they're not like super big on feedback, the graders, but they will give like a little bit. But they have like a lot of grading, right? So they tend to just, from what I've heard, again, I
just
know
grade
nothing,
it?
but it seems like they tend to just grade it and then only give feedback if there's like something sticking out to talk about.
Because I don't want that to throw me off. I feel like the deadlines and thinking about 10% being taken off every day or whatever the rules are, that already stresses me out. So I'm just like, there's just a part of me that's like, it doesn't matter, because like you're trying your best, and that will just have to be good enough, and they're going to grade it however they grade it. And employers are probably not going to be like, did you get a B- or what? You know what I mean? So
I would say you should try to look at it, because like I looked at it and I've been like so confused and I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's like I somehow like have an A and I'm like, what is going on? Yeah, I don't know how, because I literally don't know what I'm doing at all. I turn in every project and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So that was very flabbergasting that I was like, oh wow, like my average for my test was like 58%. So, there's
That's
that.
super normal.
I don't know what I'm doing either.
This
Everybody
isn't
keeps
like
saying it's fine, and they're like, "Oh, imposter syndrome," and I'm like, "No, but like, I actually don't know what I'm doing. It's not.
Yeah, I don't
It's
either.
not just that I
That's-
don't. It's that I don't."
yeah, that's this class is just different than other classes, like an art class. Like, how do you grade an art class? Like it's just different. Or how would you grade a health class, right? Or like a workout class or whatever. Like, how do you grade that? Do you grade it based on how much weight you lifted? Probably not. Instead, you might grade it on, are you consistently doing the work? And so that is often, I think, how they view it through the portal of grading is they grade it based on like, did you do the work? Did you put work into this? Not, is it perfect? Not like, so it's unlike how you would be graded for other things, where you'd be like taking off a point because you messed up here or whatever. It seems like that they grade more from the perspective of, did you put the full work into it? That kind of a thing seems to me how they're grading it. I don't know for sure though. And from the learning perspective, putting the full work in is doing a great job in this class. I mean, I tell you, if you're lost and stressed, you're still doing a great job in this class. That is how this process goes. It sucks. And good job for continuing to work through that and continue to go, even as you're like,
It's hard. It makes me cry sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I think it makes many people cry. I have definitely cried over code. It's tough. It's freaking tough. Boot camps, they're called boot camps, They'll call them like frolics in the park. Like they're boot camps. And they're rude. They're unkind. And yeah. It's a messy system, boot camps. But I love that you can learn to be a developer for not that much money. They're stressful, but you can learn to be a developer for not that much money, and I think that's cool. So that's why I teach for them. But it's definitely messy system that is unkind to the students in the sense that it's rough for y'all. And I do everything I can to make it less rough. And I think all the mentors and everybody's working everything, but it is kind of inherent in it. It doesn't help that this is a budget boot camp, right? Because maybe if you were paying $40,000, they could make it slower and give you tons of support and all that stuff. So it doesn't help that it's a budget boot camp. That probably makes it more stressful. You get more stress by paying less money. I mean, learning programming is hard regardless, but it's probably a little harder because it's a budget boot camp and there's not like, you don't have like a dedicated person who's there for you 24/7 or something. You pay tons of money, you can have that.
People have opinions about it too, because people have asked like, how much is the boot camp? And like, what, you only have class once a week? And I'm just like, you know what? Like, all of your opinions like that are negative, like I see them, I acknowledge them, they're valid, and I like definitely don't feel like hearing them at all right now because it's hard. And I'm trying to be like as appreciative and like, manifesting my dreams over here.
Yeah. This is a really, really hard process, and I think it's a good process. I think it's effective. But it's definitely like sucks and it's messy sometimes and just kind of rough. And I think just trying to make it work, you got to kind of make it work for you, because it's not just going to hand it to you right on a plate. I think something like a degree is easier to like hand you things more. Getting a CS degree is really hard, and there's a lot of classes that people just fail out of. But when you're done, it sort of is more like, all right, now here's your path. Whereas a boot camp, you gotta really fight the whole way. And that just is what it's way cheaper, way faster. I think to some degree focuses more on what you actually need to get the job, but it means you're fighting. It's on you. You have to carry a lot, as opposed to something more, like something it's less guided, handheld, and you have to carry a lot. It's very fair to be frustrated at that. And I'll help any way I can. I try to help however I can. Rosie.
I just have a quick question for everybody that's left in here. Did anybody try to go book a mentor meeting this week and it didn't work?
Yep.
Okay, because like I thought I was like losing my mind. Like none of the links work for any of them. Did that happen to
Oh no.
everybody else?
There was a booking link, but then it didn't specify who it was for.
Oh,
And then Christina reached out to me. I think there was a glitch in it, but let me check if it's still like that.
okay.
Yeah, I would reach out to Christina.
Okay,
I
because
wanna
like I
look.
tried to go check it today again, and like it usually like says next to their name, and then you can click on it, but like there's nothing to click on. Like it won't like take you to a link anywhere. So I'm like, oh,
Weird. Yeah, I would
Wow.
reach out to Christina, post places, bug people, and get your mentor session. What the
Okay.
heck? You're paying for that.
How did Prominio find you again, Natalie? Because like you've been doing this longer than, like it's not like you took the boot camp and then they were like, you know what, we like you. Just say what you learned and then say it back out, you know?
Like, how did I get hired at Prominio?
Yeah.
I just saw a job ad and I
Oh my God.
submitted my resume.
That actually
And then I
works.
interviewed. I don't think they had any idea what to do with me when I'm just like, hey. But they hired
I
me,
like it.
and I love it. I don't fit a mold, but I love it. I got into teaching very randomly. I was looking for developer jobs for my brother because I was like, oh. And then I was like, hey, I can do that. And then I started teaching like 3 years ago now, I think.
Dang.
And I freaking love it. I've gotten better. You're getting 3 years in, teacher. Not
So I just got that from you, Kate. That really helps. The only thing is that like everything's blocked out already for this week. So like that's kind of my question is like when that happens, like even if we're going to look at it, like I went to look at it on Sunday and it wasn't working. And so like what do we do if like everything's already blocked up and we're like looking at it even earlier in the week and there's nothing for us to do?
In this case, I think you
Yeah.
should send Christina a message because she's aware that it's been weird, so she might be able to fit you in somewhere.
Okay, cool.
But
Yeah, I would message Christina about that.
Because like I've
What
met
the
with
heck?
like Erica too, and she's really nice. Like she's great, but like she's always kind of like, oh, okay, what are you doing? I don't really do like the front end a lot. And I'm always like, oh, okay. And so like I'm always like a little bit like wary when I like get her because I'm like, oh gosh, I gotta explain where I'm at and I don't know where I'm at. So I'm like, oh no.
I definitely have experienced that with her as well too, where I'm just like, I don't know what questions that I'm supposed to ask anymore. And then she's like, okay, well, if you don't have any questions, then like bye, you know, and I'm just like, oh man, like I suck, you know. I don't know if she's still doing the mentor sessions because last time that I looked when I was like, how do you book a mentor session? And they had added the button, right? And I was like, wow, that's so much easier than I remember it being. And like, that's like more stupid questions coming from me because it's super obvious. You guys now have it everywhere you look. There's a book a mentor session button, but it seemed like maybe I'm wrong, but it seemed like it was Matt and Christina were like the two, because then it was like Erica was there before and then somebody else. And I booked with Erica a couple times and she is nice, but it's rough because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then she's like, okay, well, if you got a question, let me know. And if not, then, you know, we got like 20 minutes left. You know, like I'm like, ooh. Is she still a mentor? Also, I'm not trying to throw shade. You were super helpful, Erica. If you're watching this, I'm sorry. No.
I don't think she watches my class.
I know, why would she? Still though, you got to be careful what you say.
This is recorded.
I still need your help if you're out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like she just is like usually a mentor for other things and maybe fills in and maybe isn't as like up on, I mean, you can only be up on so many things, right?
She had
But
an open schedule. It was like Matt and Christina were like booked, and then it was like Erica was, and I was like, oh, cool, the available mentor. And I know that it's
Ooh.
because I don't know what my questions are. Like, and that's like my big,
wait, what's her last name?
It's like Pramer or Promer.
yeah,
She might be my former student. Wait, I can't remember.
probably. She's nice.
Oh, yeah,
She might
she's
be
really
new.
nice. She's just like very like just straight into the point.
And she knows what she's doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
She definitely knows how to do the things. But I
She
don't
might
know.
just be a new mentor. Like when you're new, you're like, wait, what am I doing?
Yeah.
True. I've been teaching 3 years now, so it's a lot easier.
Well,
When
and
I
it's
first
like,
started, I was like, what are we?
I'm like a weird one too, because I'll show up and I'll be like, I don't know the material that I'm trying to learn. And that's like my question. That's not a question, you know. I mean, how do you work with that exactly? But
Yeah.
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 Like
Oh
I
yeah,
need someone to
Jolene,
ask
that's
me a
another.
question.
Yeah. Someone said, I have a hard time knowing what to ask, and then everyone is booked already. What I would, yeah, Cassidy. I have heard from people recommending just like book the mentor session early before you even know if you need help. And just be like TBD on what I need help on. And then by the time you're there, you probably need help. Having some things on hand to get help with though, like if maybe you don't need help, like if you have a Code Wars that you like tried to do, you could always bring that up and show them that and be like, how would I freaking do this Code Wars? You know, you can always get help on that. Yeah, trying to book a week out without knowing. Yeah, Kate, I think that's a great idea. Just book and you'll find something to talk about, you know. Just at the very least a Code Wars that you tried and were like, what? Like bring that up and ask them how they would solve that, ask them to walk you through it, and that'll help somehow. So that's what I would recommend.
The office hours are nice for that sort of thing too, because sometimes I'm like, I don't know what questions I have, but then it's like they talk about something, and I feel like even if I don't know exactly what it is that I'm going for, like hearing more things and people talking about stuff, and I feel like it all helps.
Totally. Oh yeah, Daniel says he's a few weeks ahead, so like he can help us.
What?
That's awesome.
How'd you do that?
That's awesome. Yeah.
When we had the Christmas break, I got ahead. I already knew HTML and CSS, so I kind of cheated.
You're not
Love
cheating. You're not cheating.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
just
study
smart.
groups. Have you all been
Dude,
like I
that's
think there's like
awesome.
a Discord. But yeah, meet up with each other. Make those this stuff is so hard and it's less hard when you're sad together. When you're sad and stressed together, it helps somehow. So connect with each other. Because at some point this boot camp is gonna end and you're gonna get thrown out into the world, right? And you don't want to be swimming by yourself. Make friends.
That Discord is actually helpful though, if you ever go into it.
Yeah, there's like a study group Discord, isn't there?
Yeah. And they have like
Yeah.
all the weeks, so you can go back and see what other people had problems with. I think it only goes back like 30 days or something. Or 90 days.
Yeah, checking that out. A career services mentor. I don't know. Is there a career services mentor? I wish I knew better.
They keep
Sorry, I don't
talking
know.
about it, but it's like impossible to find. It's like not. It's like
I would like post somewhere and be like, "Where's that? Give me that."
Seems like
Sorry
there's
that
a
I
new
don't know. But
Seems like
I'm
there's a
like
new
also-
career services person, and they're like really on it, like on Slack. So
Oh, they're on it on Slack.
Jen, what's her name?
Dang, career service office hours is during your work hours. You could maybe ask them to record it, but then you can't ask a question. Yeah, I would message someone to get help with that. Like message Christina or message the person who's over career services and say it's during your work, but you have a question, and see if they'll meet with you or something. I would bug people. But just be a squeaky wheel until you get what you need. I think again, in a budget boot camp, you got to be a squeaky wheel. You know, I love this class because you all ask questions, right? Sometimes people, they don't ask questions, and I'm like, you won't get any oil then. You know, you'll go through this whole thing and get no oil. Like, be squeaky, ask me questions, bug people for help. message people on Slack, just be super annoying because get your money's worth. You don't care about these people. You're never gonna see me again. I mean, I want to hear about how it's going after this class, but you could never see me again after this. You could be so annoying and bug people with questions, and then you never have to see them again. So
You like the annoyingness though, for some reason. I'm just like, man,
I do like it.
I'm like, man, they're gonna hate me in this boot camp, but like, here I go, and you're like, yay, and I'm like, how did that happen? That's amazing.
Dude, I tell you, this class is one of the best classes with asking questions that I've ever had, and that makes a huge difference in how much you learn. So I am
because I say
thrilled.
stupid stuff the whole time. It's amazing. Then other
I have
people
seriously, I have finished CSS after 30 minutes, and I just keep being like, any questions, anything you want to talk about, anything, and just nobody has nothing. And I'm like, that can't have been helpful enough, the crap I just said. But you ask, you get into it, and you're like, okay, well, how will this apply? What if I'm doing this? You really pull out the stuff that you need, and I'm like, that's the stuff. Good job. Getting your money's worth in this class. I love it. Y'all rock.
I need it. I need to get good at this stuff. So I'm glad other people have better questions than I do, because I feel like I just say the stuff that makes people be like, okay, I got a better question than that one. So less embarrassing now,
Yeah, dude, you always have great questions. Everyone has. I truly am. It's never a dumb question, because if you're like, this is a dumb question, what that often means is this is the thing that it seems like I should have already known, but how would I have? And those are the stuff that is hardest as me as a teacher to realize I'm not teaching. So when you say your dumb question, you help me remember, oh yeah, I didn't even explain that. Thank you so much. It's weirdly hard to remember what you needed to know when you were first learning something,
I really think that there's a lot of us that feel that same way and are just secretly grateful that someone is putting a voice to that.
Yes, that is 100% true. Anytime anyone is like, hey, by the way, I'm like super lost. There's like all these people. Sometimes they just like DM me and are just like, yeah, I'm actually super lost too. And I'm like, yes, we all are. And it sucks. And I'm so sorry. And reach out for help, and we'll try to get you through. And we're going to just keep cramming things in your brain and trying to let it simmer. And, we're just going to do our best at all times to keep you in that cooking the noodle zone. That's my new favorite metaphor, cooking the noodle.
It does get embarrassing when you're like, I forget how to do this stuff we went over in like week 0.
Oh,
like,
yes.
It feels weird in like week 6 to be like, so I've been like getting by, but I'm not doing it right. I'm not doing it right. And like, what the heck? What do I need to do to like do it right?
That is
I'm like going over like
normal
0.5 class 0.5, you know what I mean? Like half of week 1. I'm like,
that is incredibly normal. Yeah. You're gonna forget the things. You're gonna be like, what? Like, I know we did this and now I can't remember anymore. That's totally normal. Again, the point of all this is to cook your noodle. It's worked so well in my brain. I feel like
I relearn how to push things like every week. It takes me so long to hand in my homework every time. And I'm like, I do this every single week. Like, how many weeks is it going to take me? Like over an hour? That's so dumb. That's so embarrassing.
No, I know. You can't sear a noodle.
So
you
hard.
Can't just sear
in my
the
video,
noodle.
this last one, I was like, it was like giving me errors after I made it run and I was like, I'm making this video and it's going to be great. Look, it works. And then at the end, I was like, okay, so it's not working. So then I'll like add another video because I do have working code and I want you guys to see that. But this is my problem is I can't work GitHub and I can't work VS Code. And like, this is the thing, is that like this basic stuff that we need to use, I'm just struggling with all the time. It takes me forever. Thanks for watching my video. I hope this is sufficient.
I love it.
I was like, half my video was me like not quite. I had like a good attitude, but I was kind of like bitching about being like, I'm so lost all the time and I don't know how to like do this stuff. And I'm like learning this code that I don't know how to push.
See you, Cassidy. Yes, that is super normal. Okay, Flexbox Froggy is fun. Yeah, baby. See you, Kate. Yes. That is, dude, have I told you that first job I applied for, the night before I was gonna like show them this code to like show that I could do stuff, and the night before I panicked and I was like, wait, what if I have to show in a different browser? And it doesn't work in a different browser, because back then JavaScript used to be a nightmare with different browsers. And so I was like, I'm gonna fix it really quick. So I tried to fix it. But then what happened is that the next morning when I went to show it, it was actually broken. Because when I thought I fixed it, I actually broke it. And somehow I didn't realize I did that. So I go to show them in an interview the thing that I made. And I'm like, all right, here it is. And it's broken. And I was like, this worked. And they did give me the job. So
They gave you the job?
he gave me the job.
They just love you. That's the thing.
I don't. One, it's more normal than you think to do that kind of thing. Two, it was 10 plus years ago, so I feel like they were more forgiving back then. Three, it was a job designed for beginners. It was a job designed for students, so they were also more accommodating. It was like an internship type thing. But also first week or second week on that job, I deleted the entire database. Just the whole thing, just gone with their data in it. Luckily they had a backup from like 30 minutes ago, but I was like, that was me and my first job, just being a big old mess. And just
start applying for other places on the job.
Yeah, I'm just like, do I leave now or do I should I just see myself out? But they just laughed at me and fixed it. They did laugh at me.
I had a similar issue at my job. My first month there, I deleted somebody's website off the server completely, and we didn't have backups, so I had to go to archive.org and manually copy it.
Oh my gosh. Oh yes. It's coming.
Good times.
Good
times.
It's good times. Yep. Yeah. I am like, why was there even that button for me to delete it? Why do they even have that button? My thought. Bad UI design is what I think. It was like a button to go to this page, a button to go to this page, a button to delete the whole server. What? Like, bad UI design is my thought. Not my fault. I'm not defensive. I have done all kinds of other exciting things and made messes, and almost failed a quiz that they're like, if you fail this quiz, you cannot continue as a CS major. We will kick you out. And I almost failed it.
Oh, no.
It was like it was timed. You had 3 hours. In the last 20 minutes, I finally found the bug that I'd been like, I was like full panicking, like crying, and like, I'm the only girl in the class too, and everyone's just like, what's her problem? Women.
They're like, so emotional.
They're so emotional. Shut up, you all. I finally found the bug. It was a little tiny typo that I was looking for 2 hours, just like, I got more stories. This is how you become a developer. I'm positive the guys cry about coding too.
Do they, Daniel?
Yeah, I've about had a mental breakdown on 1 week because of, well, you'll see, upcoming.
What's coming up?
No, don't say that. Now that makes me worried.
11, 12 spoilers.
Wait, what? Did you take this before? What do you mean?
No, I'm on I just turned in week 10.
Oh, and you had a mental breakdown?
No, not really. It wasn't that bad. Week 10 is not. Week 10's rough, but it's doable.
I think it's like another week 6 or whatever, you know. It's,
oh boy,
you'll get through it. Week 10, 11, and 12 though, we continue to do the same stuff. So it's kind of like week 10, you're like, what? And like week 11, you're like, okay, maybe, you know.
So just learn week 10 really well.
Week 10 is super fun. Like you get to make forms actually work. That's like, once I understood what was going on, it's awesome.
It's super fun. It's super cool.
I still don't fully understand it, but I understand it enough.
Yeah, so if you can, starting early on week 10, I do recommend it. Just even take a look. Just again, don't stress about forcing your brain to take everything in. That's just like, you'll just get stressed. Just keep your noodle in the water. Am I obsessed with this metaphor? Yes.
I think week 6 was the worst for me.
Week
It
6, I
messed
think,
me
is the worst.
up.
Yeah.
Week
Yeah.
6, like I was like so surprised too, because I was like, I'm doing this, it doesn't matter. I'm like not gonna let it get to me. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, like I think my mental health is like not doing that great right now. Like
Yes.
how did that happen? It went from being like I'm working really hard to being like, no, I'm like doing really poorly. So, but I'm glad that there's people in this course that like know what they're doing a little bit. I'm glad you know what you're doing, Danielle. And then like Ruby knows what she's doing. I don't know how. I don't know how
No,
much experience you have, but you have something. 'Cause
zero. I come
What
from
the
healthcare.
hell?
Like I know zero about
How are you
computing.
so smart? You just like wrinkled your brain together and you just like were born like
It's kind of like
that.
a meatball that's like burnt on the outside but raw on the inside. It's like so.
No.
I mean,
Your
just gave
brain is not a burnt meatball that's raw on the inside. No way. I don't believe that. Wow. What? You're a newbie
cool.
too? I've been telling myself this whole time because I get like low-key jealous, like not in the jealous like I want you to be doing worse, but like in the jealous of like like I wish that I asked good questions like Ruby does. I ask the stupid question and then like Ruby comes in and asks the question that I wish that I would have been equipped with to be able to ask.
Dude.
No, like
I'm glad you're here.
99.9% of the time your questions are like, oh, like that makes sense. Like I am grateful that you are in this class. Like
I'm so
Yeah.
grateful you're in this class. I really am. I
All of
really
you are in
am.
this class.
Because I'm like, you got the questions that I'm like, that's the one. That's the question. Like, at least Ruby knows what she's doing because she asked these great questions.
Oh,
And I'm like, I
gosh.
can't believe you are also a newbie. I just
That's
need
why it's so
more I
awesome.
need more meatball brain.
You can have mine.
Oh my God, I would love that. But you need it.
Dude, Heather, an important thing to remember is that even people that are newbies, all the things you've done before this do affect which way your brain was headed and how much turning it has to do. Even if you've never coded before, your brain might be really good at something over here and it's been really like everything in it is all wired up to do that. And now you might have to turn it really far. Or you might have done things that are like more similar-ish. Sometimes healthcare people, it does click easier sometimes. I have seen healthcare.
Are you a
like
nurse? or
whatever
something?
you
Me?
no.
Yeah. What kind of
I'm a dental assistant, so I help with like teeth and everything and extracting and surgeries and all that type of stuff.
That's a lot of
but
schooling. That's a lot of smart people stuff. I've had so many random job. I've like taken interesting jobs forever, being like, that sounds like a cool experience. Let's try that out. We get to go to that cool like location. Like, let's try that out. And now I'm like, oh my God, like what do you can't be a tumbleweed forever. That's not like a lifestyle, you know what I mean? Like
But what a life. I mean, that's very cool. I
It's been
aspire to be
nice.
one of those people that's like done everything. I want every job. I want to have every job for like a week.
You could, and then you could like teach on the side, you know?
I'm gonna become a dental assistant for a week. Actually, my father-in-law has a dentist office. I'll just be like, can I be a dental assistant for a week?
No, really? Oh my
And
God.
then I would get kicked out after day one because I am not someone in
Dental
the hospital.
assistance is like that's a hard field to go into. I've known a couple people that have done that, and it seems like a lot of schooling and difficult schooling as well too. I don't know if that was your
tough.
experience because you seem like all the smart stuff.
I went through a period of time where it was just me in the office with we had like 12 doctors. So I was doing everything. I was up front, I was receptionist, I was interpreting, I brought them back, I did blood pressure, I went to grab another person, and I repeated that process all day. And I was just in room after room. And I was freaking tired. I was burnt out. I went through like 6 months of doing that, and I was like, no, I cannot do this anymore.
That's crazy.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
As a person who's heard slightly things about dentist office, what?
It's hard. It's just people kept first we lost a person, and then another person was out of the country for like 4 months, and then another person was on vacation because they would approve her vacation. So I was like, well, I can't just be by myself.
Ah, that is crazy. No, thank you.
Interpreting's
Okay, I
another
don't
good
want to be a
one.
dental assistant. Xing out.
It's a lot, and I
I'm
work
not
with
cut out. I
children.
can't. My brain does one thing, okay? It can't turn. Can't do it. It's one thing it does, okay?
It's hard. I work with children, like doing dental care for like 5-year-olds or like
You clean their
10-year-olds.
teeth?
Yeah, or they have to either get something, they have a really bad cavity, so it has to come out, or something else is going on. So I work with kids all the time, and I was just like, I don't know if I can do this any
That
longer.
is hard mode.
So it's like my brain is turning every time when I do this course. I love art, so like these weeks it's like I want to make it all pretty, like I want to go all out. But like my brain is like, you need to like turn that way instead of going this way. So
Oh, I posted this in Slack. I found it by accident.
Ooh.
They have free ones on there,
Oh.
but I think some of it's paid too. But
Never seen
cool
that
stuff.
before.
Wow, they have
Fascinating.
free front end mentors.
yeah,
Wow, I
so
like
they
that
give you like
find
all
them.
mock-ups and stuff, so you can make your own websites and stuff that they give you
That's
client
cool.
mock-ups. Pretty cool.
We gotta like stay on this whole like little class community thing after this is done, because I'm like, man, do you like keep finding the coolest stuff?
Yes.
I'll just
highly
be the
recommend that.
cheerleader. I'll just be the mascot, and you guys will bring in all of the.
I literally have a bookmark bar that's called coding, and it's like this long of various links I found over the years that I just keep. Like,
Yeah. The
oh,
treasure trove.
like I think it's this. Let me go to this site to make sure it's actually correct. Yeah, this one. So that's got like color palettes and stuff.
Ooh.
So you could choose whatever color you want, press spacebar, and it'll come up with colors that match that one for you.
What? How is there
Yeah.
color? I
Amazing.
feel like I've bookmarked all the color generating things, but I've never seen this.
Mhm.
What?
See, good
Oh
thing
my
this is a new
gosh.
class.
You can thank
I'm-
Reddit for that.
Dude,
Well,
Reddit.
let's start with you. We'll thank you first,
Well,
Can
I'm
I
adding
ask
that
a
to my
question?
collection
and
now.
we'll thank Reddit.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's got like a lock symbol, so you can lock the color and then press spacebar, and then it'll find similar colors, so you could go all the way down the list.
That is so cool, and I'm saving that forever.
Yeah.
Ruby, did you have a question?
Okay, so with the box model, do we have to type it out on our CSS sheet, or is that something that's built into the element part of the browser? Because I see the box on my
model?
screen, and I'm like, okay, do I have to type this out, or is it like in there?
Hmm.
So I thought I would.
Wait, let me share my screen and let's make sure we're on the same page here. So this is the box model. It's a idea behind how things are spaced out in CSS. We didn't really dig into this in class, but basically it's this idea that you have some content and then you can put padding, border, and margin on them, and they go like this around it. So it's built into CSS. You just can change any of these. You can change padding, you can change border, and you can change margin. That's how
How'd
you
you get that
interact with this box.
to pop up?
If you do inspect on anything, you'll get this little box. It's
And
down
just
here at the
comes-
bottom. You might have to like expand this, but you get the little box and it
Yeah.
will tell you. Like if
Yeah.
I inspect this, it's gonna tell me that there's 10 pixels of padding on all sides and that the content itself is 922 by 70 pixels. It's on pixels, so. The way I like to think of it is that like it's like you in a chair. So this is like your butt in the chair. This is the padding, the distance between the edge of your butt and the edge of the chair. And then this is the border, like if the chair has like a tassel around it. And then this is the margin, which is the distance between the edge of the chair and the next chair, or how much space your chair needs around it. Like if you have a spinny chair, you need so much space around it.
Oh
The
yeah.
margin, how much space is needed between you and any other chair. And margins, they'll like run into each other. So if my chair needs so much space around it and there's a chair next to me that needs so much space around it, it will have both of those margins will be there. If I have 10 pixels margin and the chair next to me has 10 pixels margin, there'll be 20 pixels between us.
Oh, okay.
That's
That
the
makes
box model.
sense. Because I was trying to type it out and I was like, because my images were overlapped and then I kind of fixed it and it looks better, but I was like, do I have to type out the box model? So I thought I would ask because I was like, ugh, let's just
Yes.
ask.
Basically, you put border if you want a border, right? You put padding if you want more space inside, space between the edge and the content, like space between, you want more space around your butt on the chair.
Okay.
You want the chair to be bigger. You put more margin if you want more space outside of it. So like this nav bar right here, if I up the padding, you can literally click in here and play around. If I up the padding, now there's more space between the content and the edges, right? But if I do more margin, let's just do margin bottom. Margin bottom. If I do 200 pixels, now there's more space between this and the next chair. If that makes any sense. So you can see right here, the orange is the margin, the green is the padding.
Okay.
You just anytime you're spacing things, you use margin and padding, and you just pick which one depending on if you want the space inside or outside. Sometimes it doesn't matter, like if you don't have a background color, it might not matter if you pick padding or margin. But that is how you space things in a page. You're adding padding and margin to get things spaced like you want them to. You want more space between this. Things are up against each other, you don't want it. Put margin in there, put padding in there, things like that.
Okay.
That's how we use the box model. It's a model for how these things get applied.
Okay.
Good question. We didn't talk about that. That was one we should have talked about.
I was just like, I was looking at it because I have my page up and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to go along as like you're like talking and then I get lost because I have a question and it didn't work. So I was like, just to ask.
Love it. Totally. Did you have anything? I know you were like having some issue with something. Did you have anything you want CSS help on? CSS is one where if it's not doing what you want it to, it can sometimes be, and you're a beginner, it can sometimes be near impossible to figure it out on your own.
Okay.
I
Yeah, you
guess
did the syntax error with the exclamation hazard, the road sign.
Yeah, I did, and then for some reason now it's gone. So I wonder if I fixed the typo or whatever. But I
You
can
did.
show you what I have. It's not the
Oh, I
best.
want to just see.
It
I just love to
sucks.
see what you're up to.
It's
It really
awesome
Mine
though, because
sucks.
you're awesome,
Like,
Ruby. You're
where
like
is
the
it?
best.
Hey,
You're like the
look at
best
that,
student.
that's cool.
That's awesome.
So
Look how
I
good
would
that
say
looks.
I took it like an approach like kind of like a blogger. You know how bloggers have those weird pages? So I was like, why don't
Yeah.
you talk about ice cream? Because I love ice cream. So I was like, okay. And this came out.
Amazing.
I can
So-
relate
I
to
love it.
that.
But yeah.
Look at that.
I have to fix this and then I want to see if I can get like a text box because you can't really see this. So that's
Put a
that's
background on it.
how do you do that?
So what is that in? Is that in a paragraph? Right click on it and do
yes.
inspect. Yep. That paragraph, put a class name on it, do class equals, pick a name like white background or something, and
Okay.
then style that class and give it a background.
Okay.
You
Cool.
can even make it semi-transparent if you want.
Cool. Now
But yeah,
this,
so
I don't need to have all those breaks, do I?
no.
Okay. Cool.
Also, breaks are just BR, they're not BRK. But yeah, you should
Oh,
not be having
cool.
breaks.
Sweet.
Also, breaks don't have opening and closing tags, they're just one tag.
Well, that's good to know too.
Dude, this is the stuff. This is how you learn. You do it wrong, you get told what you did wrong. You do it wrong again, you get told what you did wrong again. And you just like over and over and over and over and over and over.
Well, I did this kind of in week 7, so I had a little bit of
Nice.
a cushion. I'm on the
Yeah,
bootstrap
that's great.
lesson now, so I have like a different
That's
idea that's
awesome.
simmering in my brain, and I just started on it
Yeah.
today. So we'll see how that goes.
That's amazing. Yes, this is the stuff. Do this stuff. This will help your learning so much. Just make dumb little things. Make amazing pages about ice cream with polka dots. Like that's awesome.
I want
That is
that
a
polka
beautiful
dot
thing.
background.
Do you want to see how I did it?
Yeah.
I can show
Yeah.
you.
Yes.
How'd you do it? Show me.
Okay, so where is it? Where is it? Where is it? This is my polka dot. All of this.
Radial gradient.
Is it
That's
a
awesome.
is it a radial gradient?
Yeah, and then you copy it. Ding 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 ding. Ding 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 ding.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's actually
That
sick.
is crazy. That is truly sick. I'm not gonna lie.
I was like,
I didn't send me that code for the polka dots. I want to like hang it on my wall.
You get the you get the best stuff, Ruby.
That is so. I've really never seen that before, and I am enthralled.
I'm gonna use that in my next project we have to do.
yeah. I can send
Yes.
it.
Everybody should just do
Let's
polka
poke-
dots and don't
let's
say anything.
polka dot the
Those are
world.
polka dots. Share that on the Slack channel.
Yeah, I can. Let me copy it.
I know.
And
Where's
everybody's
the
gonna
polka
be
dot?
like Team Ruby, like with the polka
Oh my
dots. I want that.
That would mess the
Yeah.
graders up if everybody just had polka dot backgrounds in their project.
It's
They'd
gonna
like,
be
"What in the world?"
awesome. They can
Yes.
handle it. They can
Please
do it.
post that on the Slack channel or let me. I would love to. Because
Yeah.
that is seriously cool. And very happy. It looks like ice cream.
Yeah, I was like, well, I wanted to make it like a lot of colors, and Mom's like, people aren't gonna be able to see what you have on there, so you need to
Yes.
pick 3, and that's it. Like, don't do no more. So it's like, okay.
But yeah, in terms of the paragraph, wait, let me just share my screen really quick. You can put a class on the paragraph. Let's pretend this is the paragraph class equals I don't know. What, just pick a name for whatever you're gonna apply to it. And then you can just make a class. This will be in the code that I share after class, so you can know. And then you can just do like background white or background light gray or whatever you want to do. You can even do a semi-transparent background, which can look really fun. It should be
How do
well,
you
let me
do
pick the color. Does it have a color picking thing? Come on, where's your
Uh,
Doesn't it have a color picking thing?
yeah, I
thought it
think
was
once you
like-
put pound sign, whatever. Yeah. there you
Oh,
go.
once you put up what did I just do? Well, I don't know, but you can pick a color in here. Here we go. You can pick a color, and then you can actually make it semi-transparent. Let's see. Or something. And you'll get a little background on it. Let's see if I can do this with body.
How did you make it semi-transparent?
You can make it semi-transparent. Any color you can make semi-transparent by changing it from RGB to RGBA and then putting a 4th thing on here. Let's see if I can see this.
RBGA and then
Where are you? White backgrounds. Oh yeah, here it is. Here it is right here. It's the ugliest thing you've ever seen, but that's
RBGA and then a what?
A 4th number.
Um,
Again.
a 4th number.
Oh,
Let me
thanks.
see if
You're
I
a
can
good
do this.
listener.
See, is it working? Did I mess it up? Wait, cancel. There we go. Is that working? Did I mess it up? Bring it down. It should go less. Should be more transparent. That's not
It actually
transparent.
does match with the chair though, so
It does match with the chair, doesn't it? Well, okay, it's intentional. I think I have a syntax here. I can't remember now.
Isn't
How to
it
do RGBA? Did I
0.9
do
or
something here?
something?
RGBA, where's RGBA? Come on, give me RGBA. Yeah, I feel like I did it right. So why is it weirding at me? I don't
Oh,
know.
it's 0.5 up until 1, or 0.1 to
1. That's what I did wrong. Thank you very much. Because I was like, why is it being so weird? It's because I put 29. That would do it. Okay. 0.5. There you go. See how it's like semi-transparent? Like the green is showing through my ugly gray. So you could do something like that. You just give it a background color. And then you can pick how transparent you want it to be so you can still see the polka dots. But it makes this something you can play around with if you feel so inclined.
that sounds good. I did send it in the chat. I have to
Yes.
so you guys can see
Wait, did
it.
you do it in the Zoom chat?
Yeah.
I'll grab it. Can I share it in our class Slack channel?
Yeah. Yeah. I think polka dots are magical. So
Yeah. Can I say it to you, or it's on the recording now? So. Your secret is out.
It's skills.
Slack
My,
channel.
I mean, mine's not even about ice cream, but I definitely want the polka dot.
Wait, will this give me polka dots? Look!
It's so cool.
You can kind of read this even with the crappy pink text because the semi-transparent. And
Just
then
put it back.
if you
Yes.
wanted to, you could put like padding on it. Because padding gives space between the edge and you can start to stop that. You can start to get something, I don't know, something on top of it. Whatever.
gotcha. Okay.
You can play around with things. Why is it so skinny? I don't know.
I'm leaving y'all with my other link. I'm pulling out my good bookmarks.
Oh yeah,
Thank
pull up
you.
the good book.
Yes, you're helping
Oh.
me out
The-
so hard.
You can right click on the image and save, or they have a URL in the second. And you can do any
Oh.
size. So if
So
you don't
when
have-
you're like setting things up, you can like put a bunch of fake oh, that's so
Yeah.
cool. Okay, I'm bookmarking this too. What the heck?
Thanks for sharing all of your like gold nuggets over here. It's like you really are like
Yeah. We're getting the
Bringing
good
out
treasures.
all
These are-
gems.
these are
Yeah.
on the recording too, so the world can have these good
Uh-oh.
treasures. Because the
My
entire
secrets are
world
out.
watches these
Their
recordings.
secrets are out for real. I need them though. I need all the help that I can get. It's like kind of ridiculous.
This recording is gonna go viral just because. I don't think it can.
Because
I
of
think
the
it's
polka dot
unlisted.
background.
Somebody's getting rich. Somebody's gonna from this viral video. It's probably not gonna be me, but somebody here.
I don't think it has ads on it, so you won't then. I was
We can
actually in a viral video once, and you don't make any money unless you have ads. You
Oh.
have to have ads set up before it goes viral in order to
Who
make
should
any
we
money.
advertise? Let's put one in now. Like now that we know that we're gonna come on. Something.
I actually
Video
Freaking
tech might capitalize on, you know what I mean? If you asked him being like, okay, so this video is gonna go viral.
I actually
polka
made
dots.
I made a semi-viral video
Really?
once. It's so stupid.
Wow.
So
Did you get
The
any
best
money?
ones are.
it wasn't much because it was when Google was kind of getting into YouTube. But what I did,
Mm.
they used to have on YouTube these ISS feeds of like the International Space Station. So I took like a 30-second recording of it, and I literally took a period on a keyboard and animated it to zoom across the screen. And I sent it to a couple of news outlets and told them it was a UFO, and they ran with it. I could send y'all the link if you want to see it.
I
but-
love it. Oh my god.
Here, I'll post it in here. It's
You're
the
so cool. I'm glad you're in this class too. This is ridiculous, dude. Not only do you have like great resources, but you're also fun and funny and come with great stories. I like your attitude.
Now this
so
video is
great.
gonna go viral because it's like Daniel Cox admits he UFO was a hoax.
I posted in the comments. I'll post the video here, but I posted in the comments that it's fake because I got so many people messaging me about it. I'm like, it's fake. No, it's fake.
Tell him it's a spirit.
Yeah.
You know, that's the other one. That's you're really gonna get him.
Gosh.
Like it's an orb, you know.
That is amazing.
This is
That is
great.
amazing.
Oh my god, we're gonna get rich, you guys. You guys have the best ideas. This is amazing.
Right here.
Oh my god, we
my
could do like
goodness.
like comedy, like a comedy.
Yeah, we got the skills.
We're funny. You guys
All
are
right.
funny.
We're so funny.
Here it is.
Oh my
Um,
god, can you share it? Will you share your screen? I want to see it so bad.
I posted in the
Wait,
slide
What
or
is
the
it? What is
channel.
wait, wait.
So
Wait, can you guys see
everything
my screen?
everything about the video, including the images at the end, like that gray screen, that's all fake. That's a
Yeah.
Just like the little.
I like
It-
that people were like into it. The little spinning thing looks kind of fake, but it's cool though. I also don't. I'm not an astronaut. I don't know what
The
it looks
little.
it's
It cuts out like.
yeah, that's just a photo I found on Google image search.
Where was the period? Where's the spaceship?
So you have to put it full screen and do HD, and you'll see it. It's in the middle of the screen, and it zooms past that little satellite that's rotating. That's actually
it's right there.
Yeah, there it is. That's literally a period on a keyboard, and I shrunk it down and animated it.
This is dedicated.
Look how many views it has. 6 years ago, 500,000 views. Because I sent it to some British. I sent it to some British news station, and they ran with it.
We have the best people in this class. You're not joking about this being the place to network. Like,
yeah,
this is amazing. You're funny. That's awesome.
So Matthew, if you didn't know, is my brother. We laughed so hard for so long at this, and it just got more ridiculous as the months went on.
Matthew's your brother.
Yeah.
Wow. You could probably just learn all this stuff from him.
Because of my work schedule, I bug him so much. He's probably tired of me.
He's lucky to have you. That's so funny.
There's like other languages.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Great.
We need this kind of thing though. I like that that's hilarious. I like troublemakers like that. Like I think because it's so harmless. It's not like you're actually hurting anyone, but I really like that you were like, you know what, I'm gonna send this to the news stations, and they're just like, oh my God, what do you do with it?
That is epic and beautiful, and I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, that's my life accomplishment.
That is a beautiful life accomplishment. Like you're done. You're out. You did it.
Yeah.
You gave to the world.
It's like your first claim to fame. Like
yes, my only one.
You're making this is the second viral video that's not gonna make you any money, I guess.
This one.
Yes.
This one is gonna be viral as well. And then we'll have to be like, I'm sorry, there's a clip in there of a UFO, but that clip in our video isn't real. We'll send this video to news outlets.
Yeah.
Daniel Cox was lying. It's a scam.
I think the statute of limitations is pretty close. It's about 7 years.
I don't know. I think they prosecute for YouTube videos.
Oh yeah.
The fullest extent of the law for trolling. Oh, that's funny.
That's amazing.
I feel awesome to know you guys.
We got a cool class.
You got a really cool class. Let's I don't want to lose y'all. Let's stay at class forever. It's never leave. Just the class will end and I'll just keep showing up here.
I'm down. I'm down because I got a lot to learn. I got a lot
We
to
can
learn.
crash it on week 6.
Yeah. Crash it. Just come in on week 6 and be like, shh, Natalie, look, shush me, and just be like, y'all, look, this sucks, right? Like, just start throwing tomatoes at the screen. Like, get out of here.
Week 6 was rough and it was crazy because I was like, I can't believe that this is like the hardest week, and then I'm like having to take days off and stuff where I was just like, okay, like mental health.
Dude.
And then I like come to class and I'm like, I'm having like a mental breakdown, you guys, by the way. Like it's like too much information and stuff. I don't know if anyone else is like freaking out, being like, is this just like, what's my deal? Is it like just the learning
Relatable
part of it? Is it learning disorders? Is it like what's going on? Am I just not able to like handle stress?
It's programming. It's not you, it's programming. It is this rude. Is this mean? Computers are too dumb and programming is hard. And it's a truly insane thing that we decided we were going to try to talk to computers when they're stupid and complicated.
It feels like since it's so stupid, I should be like smart enough to figure out how to like tell it what to do.
Are you kidding? It's so hard to tell a stupid person what to do. Have you ever tried to tell a 2-year-old how to do something? Oh, don't even try.
Some of them are better though. Oh my gosh. So this is like totally like talking smack.
I
and
do
stuff,
have
right?
to
But
go
there was
in,
a
like, a
time
minute,
where I
but-
didn't want to get a job, and I was like, I want to be able to like go in whenever I want. So I went to the day labor place, right? Because they'll take like anybody, they'll take like the felons and stuff. And there are some really stupid people that are doing stuff. We were putting up like one of those domes where you can like play sports inside, even though it's like snowing outside and things like that. So there would be people like where you'd be like, pull the tarp this way. And there would be people like standing on the tarp, like pulling. And you'd be like, you guys, like, this is crazy. And there'd be like 30, 40 people, like all just like half of them are standing. The other ones are like, what are we doing? And I'm just like, this is like crazy. Like, what am I? I've had like a lot of like good, bad ideas. And that was like one of them where I was like, it's like funny, you know? I was like, it's almost feels like a TV show or something, like a sitcom where I'm like, is this like reality right now, right? You know, and I'm like, whatever.
Someone needs to write your biography.
It's funny. I have had people tell me that I should like write a book because it's so weird and random and stuff.
Live. Anyways, I do have to go. We're hitting 8 o'clock here, my time.
Oh, wow.
But it's all on the recording, so
It's all the like smack you just talked about your day labor coworkers, it's on here. I'm sending it to them right now. They're gonna be big mad. Watch out. Anyway, I do have to go. But this is amazing, and you all are amazing. And wow, this class, polka dot power forever.
Yes.
I'll see
Thanks
y'all
for
next
being
week.
amazing, you guys. You're so good. And thank you, Daniel, for like sharing all of those links, like all of
Yes.
your like go-to.
I've got more if you need them.
I want
Good.
all of them. It's like I want to
Now,
like side of your
every
brain.
class, Daniel, we're gonna have Daniel's links hour, and you'll have to share a link every class.
I'm gonna have to
Or
do
we'll
more
kick you out.
research. Oh, kicked out of the club. Yeah, I've
Close,
got
okay?
like,
Except I did make that rule.
I've got a plethora of links. We're good for a few months at least.
You might be able to stay in this boot camp
Yes.
for a while. We'll see.
Sweet.
We'll see.
He's
Awesome.
gonna help you teach too. All of us
Hey.
are.
I don't know about
Yes, you do. Most of classes, you're all's questions. Like you came up with the learning material with your questions, and it's good stuff. It is very good stuff. A lot of times from your questions, I'll use that to help craft slides and things and what we do because you all have good questions. Thank you very much. Anyways, I do gotta go.
Alrighty.
Okay,
See
cool.
y'all
Thanks
later.
for
Thank you so much.
hanging
Next
out.
week.
See
Bye.
you.
See you around.